or do I just not have my screen?
I was just noticing she's missing.
Oh, I didn't realize that my microphone wasn't on. I'm trying to help her. She's
Okay,
having
thank you.
problems.
Yeah, Eric, the emails that got sent out today, every time I went into those links, it took me to the policy committee meeting. So I had to go back to the calendar invite to get in.
I clicked on just at the top of the agenda, if that helps her.
I did too. I told her that's what I did.
Yeah, Eric,
Okay.
the emails that got sent out today, every time I went into those links, it took me to the policy committee meeting.
Yeah, I resent
So
that
I had to
out.
go back to the calendar invite to get in.
Okay. Thanks for helping her, Michelle.
I was able to get in through the calendar invite as well, through Google.
Elisa, we are good to go.
Okay, did we get Jeanette on here?
I'm looking for her now. Do not see her yet.
Can she raise her hand? Jeanette, if you're on, raise your hand.
Good thing about Zoom is they do put them in alphabetical order. So.
Can someone send it to her because she's not able to get on?
Okay,
I'll send it.
I think I could.
She's not able to launch the meeting. So do you have any suggestions?
And when I do, it sends me to the policy committee.
That's not the right link.
Tell her I sent her I just emailed her.
He just emailed you the link.
Okay, I'm clicking on it. It says when system dialog prompts, click open Zoom as, and I'm doing it, and it's not. Okay, I might have to just restart this thing. Go ahead, start without me, and then I'll join in.
Okay.
When I can.
Okay, they all hear you, so.
Thank you, Jeanette. We will start, but we know you'll be with us very soon.
Okay.
So,
All right, bye, Jeanette.
okay, you're all right. Okay. And thank you everyone for being patient with us. So I will go ahead and call to order the July 20th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
I move we
So
approve
moved.
that as presented.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Nay. Passes 6-0. Director Linkaitis, will you please read our purpose statement?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. And before we get started, I will read our statement on public forum discussion items and etc. on comments from the public. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And our first big item on the agenda is COVID-19. So Superintendent Reisner, we will turn it all over to you.
Thank you. I want to start by saying tonight was supposed to be a night where we approved our return to learn plan. And you know, it was almost a celebration for us because while the conditions are certainly not what we want for our students, not the choices we want to have to be making. It was a lot of work that was coming to kind of a closure on one end. Unfortunately, on Friday, the governor issued a new proclamation, and what we quickly realized, along with many other districts in reviewing our return to learn plans that had already received state approval from the Department of Education, that our return to learn plan would not meet the guidelines set forth in that proclamation. So that meant that we needed to go back to the drawing board. And so that is what we are currently doing. Our hope is that we will have that done, at least the part that's not in compliance, which really is our hybrid model where we would bring 50% of our students. We had said 50% on an AABB basis. And so that does not meet the guidelines. So we are going back and relooking at different options with that hybrid model to bring us into compliance with that proclamation. A couple items that I just wanted to point out. We sought clarity on a couple points. Number one, parents still have that option to choose voluntary online. And so that is still available. And we do not have to go through a course approval process. Originally, we had believed we needed to go through that course approval process because it was in Senate File 2310. That got stricken from 2310, but it did not get removed from the guidance that the DE provided. So today they clarified that that has been stricken and we don't have to go through that cumbersome process. So that is great news in that parents will still have that option to be able to choose. So I just wanted to just give that quick update about why the return to learn plan was removed. I can't bring something for the board to approve that doesn't meet state guidelines. So we're doing everything we can to rework that as quickly as possible.
Superintendent Reisner,
You bet.
can I
Yes.
ask for clarification on your clarification?
Well, I think, give me a certain point.
So you said that in terms of hybrid, parents still have the option to choose online. And so what I read was it said that that the online instruction, the instruction can't be primarily through remote learning. And so what that's referring to is the 50%, not that the instruction has to be any particular subject. It's really just that 50% distinction. Is that right?
I was talking about the continuous learning parent choice model.
Mm-hmm.
That is still available for parents to choose 100% continuous learning online.
That's what I needed. So
Okay.
the continuous online parent choice is 100%. Those students don't still need to come for those core subjects.
Correct.
Okay.
They do not.
Thank you.
So it will be 100% online. You're correct. Yes. Thank you for that clarification. I know it gets complicated and we talk about it all day long, every day. And so sometimes I think it's not clear what we're saying. So I appreciate that. So the first item on the COVID-19 report is a review of the decision-making timeline. I put this on here tonight to kind of ask for the board to have a discussion in light of the governor's proclamation. Some of the decisions that may have been on the table have been taken off of the table. So I feel as if we could be in a position that we could make a recommendation sooner for the board to act on. And my thought on that in talking with my administrative team is that if we made a recommendation sooner, we would be able to have parents have information that they needed to be able to complete the online forms for requesting online education. And we would have that information in advance and be able to spend some more time really looking at ways of grouping students, whether we're 100% in person or whether we choose the hybrid model. It would give additional time for our administrators to be able to do that grouping. And so just as a, I thought as a starting place, a recommendation, and I think this is very open for discussion. I want to put it out there that it could be an option, but in no way we're okay also staying with our current timeline. But to put out there, I was thinking that we could, by July 27th, bring the plan, and at that time also bring a recommendation to the board for our reopening of schools in the fall. And then August 3rd, which would be a week later, similar to the timeline that we currently have, we had a week between the recommendation and parents putting in for that online approval. We could have the online forms due by August 3rd, which then gives our administration and our staff time to do those groupings. So, that was one thing I thought, if that is something that helps the public be able to plan in more advance, I would think we could make that happen at this point. So that's really open for discussion.
What questions do you have? I just heard Alan, I think.
One question, or I guess a comment I'd have is, I'll give you my opinion on the one thing in a second, but
Sure.
First of all, I just want to make it clear, like you said at the beginning, thank you to all the staff for all the work they put in for the planning you've done so far, because we really appreciate it. And I still hope that some sanity wins out and we can make sure to do the things that are best for our students. In a way, I'd really like to see the planning continue, simply because I think you guys were going down the path of doing what's right instead of what's convenient or popular with certain people. And I hate to see the timeline get shortened and maybe sacrifice that, but I think what you're saying could still work. The only thing I'd say is, we've seen like the White House say they don't want the science and safety to get in the way of getting back to school. I want to make sure that locally we really try to agree that safety is the top priority. So do what makes sense and then figure out a way to make what makes sense be allowed legally, I guess.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say that we have to find a way to make safety legal, but so as far as the schedule, I'd be okay with allowing it to go forward earlier. I think that could really help parents out. The question I kind of have is, what do you see other districts that are kind of in the same place we are that have done a lot of work on this, had some recommendations, had some plans for how to keep students safe? What do you see there, like in the urban group you're a part of, for example, across the state? What are they looking to do?
Great question. So the majority of us all did some sort of hybrid model that is not in compliance with the new regulations that are out. As you know, several of our urban districts opted for 100% online for all students. And so that too doesn't meet the guidelines. They're not able to make that decision without consultation with the Department of Education and the Public Health Department. So they would have to submit paperwork and in consultation be approved for that mode of learning, which we have not heard is very likely. So the majority of us are all in the same situation, having to go back and rework our hybrid plan for the 50% face-to-face or 50% of in on-site instruction. What most of us did was the model of either A, B, day off, And that day off is not really a day off. It's a day that our staff is preparing and touching base with students who are not online or who are online on those off days. And then they would do another A/B, or like our plan referred to AA, and then a day for teachers to work on the online component, and then BB. And so that is, that won't, in the current model, that won't work. And so you have to have the 50% within 2 weeks. So for example, you could go potentially go AAA, BB, and then go BBB, AA. And that would make that work. The downside of that is that our teachers would be teaching a full day of in person, and then would also be trying to plan and do lessons for the students that are off campus, doing that remote learning on their off day, which is very difficult. So that is, Alan, what the majority of the districts in the urban network, what we're faced with. We had that plan in one way or another. So that's what we're reworking right now. There's some options that we have discussed. You can lengthen the school day to give you the hours that would be the 50% hours, and then still be able to have that day for the staff to work with the online component. It makes for a longer school day, which has some downside to it. Or you can, stick with kind of that model of every day, AB, 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 like that too. So those are what our staff is currently working through. And we are right in line with the other districts, and we're sharing information, resources, thoughts. So it's a good partnership with that urban network.
I appreciate what you and your staff are doing there, because I know it's big change kind of at the last minute that wasn't anticipated, and is definitely going to put a lot more pressure on staff and teachers that I was hoping we would not have to do. I guess related to that, I know the other thing that was in there of concern with the governor's proclamation really was the lack of local control to respond when there are health and safety concerns at a school. So I guess a question I'd have is, with those two issues, both the how to allow staff the time they need to do things in a hybrid model correctly, and the health and safety in the school, is there any sort of, I guess, a possibility of having some of the urban districts combine and, I guess, for lack of a better word, express our displeasure by sending a letter to the governor or something, unified, saying this is not the best thing for our students, just so that we can be on the record as saying, hey, we don't agree with this decision. I don't know.
Yeah, great question. And that's exactly what we discussed today. We're definitely a strong group, the larger districts in Iowa, and work very well together, and have some lobbyists that work with us. So that's absolutely in the works to do that. But in the meantime, I feel like our district needs to move forward with putting together a plan that would meet the requirements, because we do want to see our kids' education move forward, regardless of what happens kind of on that side of it. But you expressed, I think, our greatest concern at this point, and that is not having that local control to be able to use metrics when there is an outbreak, or when we have a student in a classroom test positive, that we use local control to be able to take mitigation steps and do contact tracing and quarantine. So that's most definitely our concern. I'm concerned for our staff, because those situations can, if we have an outbreak in a classroom and we have to wait weeks to get permission to shut a classroom down. By the time we get permission to shut a classroom down, are we looking at the need to shut multiple classrooms down or a building? So we are really pushing hard to regain that local control, to be able to have that. The other thing is that we were told I guess on Friday a little bit, but more so today, that we will get metrics from the Department of Education in conjunction with Iowa Public Health, and those should come the first week of August. As you know, I've talked about it before, we have been desperately working because we've been told repeatedly as we have reached out to the Department of Education, the governor's office, as well as our public health systems, that there would not be any assistance, or they would not actually be creating the metrics, that we would have to do that on our own. So we have spent countless hours working with Mary Greeley and Story County Health, and creating those metrics. Only now to find out that we may actually get something from this state. So again, it feels, as you've expressed, many of you, it feels like, 2 steps forward and 10 back, and a lot of staff time that's disappointing, because some of it feels, like a wasteful amount of time that we've spent, only to have that not be what was going to be the direction, and to have the Department of Education approve plans, and then our plans now aren't correct, and we're starting school in just a few weeks. So we actually have some urban districts that are starting a week earlier than us, so they're really scrambling to figure that out.
Well, I won't belabor any of the stuff we all, I think, agree on there. Back to the original question you asked. I mean, I would be supportive of, if we wanted to decide something earlier to give families more time for planning, that makes sense. The only thing I'd leave you with is thank you again for the staff for doing all this, and everybody that might be listening or hear about this, thank you so much for doing it. And just remember that as a school board, this isn't what we would necessarily do, and we really want to put the priority on the safety of the staff and the students first and foremost. And we'll do anything we possibly can to help support that. So,
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The first one is, do we have plans in place for when staff and teachers get sick? Are they going to have PTO for COVID? Because some people can be sick for months. There are some other issues that can come into play, and I know a couple of weeks may not be enough time.
Right. So I think, okay, I thought you were frozen for a second, Gina, sorry. I think that we do have a policy on here tonight that does speaks to absences, I believe. I can't, we have our timeline up, so I can't quite scroll down, but we do have Kristen on here. Kristen could jump in. Kristen Johnson, our HR director, and she could provide the information in terms of staff. What was important for us as a district was when we were originally given that local control of being able to put staff into quarantine if necessary. We really wanted to make sure that staff didn't run out of their leave because we were putting them into quarantine. And so that was going to be leave that was covered by the district. So and many times the staff member, wouldn't be experiencing symptoms, may not even be COVID positive, and would still be able to teach their class online. So without that local control, we're kind of left trying to figure out how that looks. But without a doubt, our priority is with our staff, ensuring that their leave, that they're able to take that leave, and that we, they're not penalized for if they become ill at work, or if they have to go into quarantine, if that was the case. So we would be working with them on that. Kristen, did you want to it's always hard when you can't see people. Did you want to say anything else about COVID leave, or does that come later?
No, that's not on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
You may not remember, but back in April, the board approved our COVID absence policy. It's in accordance with the federal law. There are 2 paid weeks of emergency leave for COVID related reasons. There are 6 different COVID related reasons. And then after that, there are 12 weeks of FMLA, which has been also expanded to include FMLA for parents who don't have childcare or their kids are not in school because of a COVID-related cancellation. And so we've got all of that already in place since April, and kind of ahead of the game. I've been thinking about this all summer, how this is going to work, and just it's going to be a very busy time. So I just hope that, yeah, it's going to be tough because, as you'll find out later, we may not have enough coverage.
That's my concern as well, because we may have a lack of substitutes willing to substitute teach in this kind of an environment, regardless of our safety precautions. So that is a concern of mine. Another question that I had too was, and Kristen, you may be able to answer this. What kind of a liability do we have if something happens on school grounds? Someone gets sick and disabled or worse. That's
actually so the legislature and the governor signed a law just at the end of this last session that took away a lot of the liability of places of established, businesses, governments, for somebody who might claim that they caught the virus on the location. With respect, so there's protection. There's actually a legal, there's a law that gives it gives immunity to public establishments. And in terms of employees, there is the possibility of workers' comp, but it is going to be one of those things that will be extremely difficult to prove if a person wants to try to prove that they caught it at work, because you could catch it anywhere, and we don't have any control over where individuals go, and it would be really difficult to trace where they might have gotten it. And so the workers' comp insurance company that we work with has said that even though it could potentially be available, it may be very difficult to establish the connection between work and catching the virus.
okay. My biggest concern is if we had been leaning towards a different model that we're not able to offer now, and we feel like our hands are tied, we have to bring people into the district, into the buildings. Are we opening ourselves up legally as well, without meaning to? So thank you. I did want to say too, I really appreciate the amount of work everyone put into that return to learn plan. A lot of people have noticed, people from other districts have come to me and said, wow, you guys really knocked it out of the park with how well that was written. And I feel for you having to go back and rewrite a bunch of it.
Well, we will do a great job when we go back. So we are committed to making sure that that our students and our staff are taken care of. So, I think a liability is always important to talk about, but it's really for us, what's keeping us up at night is the human side of it, and just the fact that we love our teachers, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of them, and keeping our kids safe as well. So we'll work hard to come up to speed on our plans and make them acceptable to bring back to you.
I've been losing sleep over this as well, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one.
I know. I will say that I know I can speak on behalf of our staff. They know our board very, very concerned, compassionate, and cares about their health and well-being. That is very evident, and I feel really blessed to work with a board that prioritizes our students and staff. So thank you for that.
Jenny, going back to your original question about moving the date up to July 27th, I fully support that. I think there's been so much uncertainty that people are really grasping for some sense of some decision so they can move forward in their life. And so I think that doing that sooner than later is better for teachers as well as parents who need to determine what choices they're going to make in terms of, you know, where their kids are going to be schooled or daycare and all those kinds of things. So I fully support you moving it up. And I think that it'll give everyone a sense of ease in this really uncertain time.
Thanks for your feedback.
I don't know if I support moving it up. And I guess I just need to, I have some questions that will help me better understand. I'm not opposed to it one way or the other. I guess it in terms of the process by which things need to happen. So can you help me, Superintendent Reisner, understand, given the options, right? We have our 3 options. Under the hybrid model, what happens, or excuse me, the parent choice model, what happens if 80% of our parents choose online? Does that make any difference?
No, it doesn't. We still are required to provide the options that we were in the very beginning, what the state set out. We're still required to provide those options.
So it's not, so the 50% doesn't mean butts and seats. So if the majority of the community chooses online learning, like the district could, the parents could literally put us all online in theory.
In theory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That helps me. And then when choosing, so let's say parents, let's say we give them the choice early and parents choose this remote option. What happens then to your planning if they choose that they want to come back after a month or so because they feel like it's okay? Does that, because if we move it up because we want to give planning, does that potentially throw off the planning?
Yeah, it's a really great question that we've been wrestling with. There's 2 schools of camp on this. And so you'll hear some of the districts be very hardcore in that we are going to tell our parents that they have to be locked in for the semester because of the disruption it could cause with staff. I can't take that. I can't quite support that approach. I understand the difficulty that causes for us as educators in the school district and what that could mean in terms of the workload that we have to kind of rearrange things on a regular basis. But what I really think is important is that none of us have ever faced this challenge before. I certainly haven't as a superintendent. Our teachers haven't, and our parents haven't. And so for me to say you have to make a choice in August that locks you in, regardless of what may or may not happen, I'm just not comfortable with that. So just from a human side, I really want our families to be able to say, you know, I'm going to start online, but if things are, you know, if numbers are looking like it would be safe, I would feel it would be safe, then I want our families to have the option of rejoining, or vice versa. I want our families to be able to say, you know, our family situation has changed and I really would prefer my child move online. So that's and yes, it's going to be a lot more work and a lot more kind of being very flexible, but I feel like it's the right decision for students and for families.
Okay, that's helpful for me. My last question, and really kind of the biggest question, is I feel like I'm trying to understand what's different today than where we were a week ago. And I understand the proclamation that came out and all the requirements, particularly as it relates to a district going fully online. That was a really important option for our district specifically, given the situation in Story County. And the situation in Story County has kind of gotten worse, not any better. And so it would help me to know if the district is pursuing getting the now needed permission to go online, because if that's going to take 2 weeks, then I want to wait.
Mhm.
If that's going to take 2 days, I'm fine to move it up. But I feel like, from my perspective, I don't have all the information I need, because if there's the possibility to get this third option back on the table, I want it on the table.
Sure.
And so even if the answer is no, we can't, I want to know that. And that's the piece I need from you.
Yep. What I can say is that we've been told the answer will be no. I mean, we've been told that's the answer that we're going to get.
But I want to know the answer is no.
I know. So
I want a formal piece of paper from the Department of Education that says no.
well, I sent an email to Meet. All of the urban schools are individually sending emails to Meet with the Department of Education to propose our original plans that were approved. So we are going to, I'm still going to move that direction to say we would like the waiver to go, to have the opportunity to make a local decision about going all online. From what I hear, it's probably going to be no, but that will be sooner than later. I mean, I'll be able to do that within this week.
Well, and there's, I think what I understand is it's not going online permanently, but kind of going online temporarily. So like, is the district could they potentially propose, well, we want to go online for a month? They kind of figure out, like, that's what I'm thinking. Because I feel like if we are going to pursue getting permission to go online, which I think we should, we're not actually giving families any kind of structure or comfort if that option is then back on the table.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
Following kind of along that same line, I understand that families really want to know and be able to make a decision about what they're going to do this fall. The uncertainty is difficult for all of us, and I wondered, I'm concerned about the very tight timeline that we have to make this decision, when now the plans that we had, we no longer have. We have to redo the plans. The idea of making a call on this, as Monique said, without having all of the information about what does the new hybrid model look like, or is difficult for me. And I also wondered whether you had discussed the possibility of delaying the start date of school this year, given that the situation in Story County and the fact that the university students will be coming back around August 10th. Delaying the start might give us a little more time to see what the conditions are in Story County, and then a little more time maybe to make that decision without putting such a crunch on families, like only giving them 2 weeks notice before school starts.
Absolutely. I think it's a great option. And so we have been today. I mean, today, it's the first day since we got that proclamation, but we have been discussing that today. So I appreciate that coming up. I think it was, I think you were one of them that had sent me that, as well as a couple colleagues. We had talked about that over the weekend. So I think it's a really good, viable option that's on the table. If we were going to move that direction, our plan was this week, we'll kind of nail down some of those logistical pieces, what it would mean, and then bring a calendar revision back to the board. Of course, we would want to get input from our Teachers Association and others as well, but definitely looking for that guidance over the week. Yep.
Thanks for that.
You bet.
I guess, go ahead, Jeanette.
Oh, thanks.
Nope, go ahead.
I'm just, I'm not happy with this proclamation, right? It's, I haven't talked to, the last time we met as a board, we were set, right? We had the ready to learn plan, and it had been approved. So we were on our way. And as things were progressing in Story County, I was not comfortable sending people back to school. So this is a punch in the gut for me, because this is a huge responsibility that and so it's ironic that we're voting for something that we're being told that we have this control over voting for this piece that we actually do not. I will not, that was not this is not what I signed up for. I do not want to send students and teachers into harm ways. So with that said, I want to thank the staff for what you're doing. I cannot imagine all the work you're doing and the nights. I mean, I don't sleep at night, right? I'm sure most of us here don't, because we're so stressed out about this. So it's just it's devastating that we're having to deal with this, and I'm so sorry for all of us. Back to the decision making timeline. I think the sooner the better, but I also would like to pursue the online piece if that's a possibility. And if they say no, it's we have it on paper that that they said no. I suppose it's best for the families and the teachers to know what we're doing and what we're facing. This summer has been crazy. Nobody has not thought about this for one single day. So I think the sooner we let everybody know what we're thinking, it's probably the best.
I guess I would, I am curious to know, as we're trying to navigate this, essentially the three models, the continuous online learning, the hybrid, and the face-to-face instruction. Those are the three. I'm taking the parent choice out because to me, parent choice, family choice is everywhere, right? So I'm just removing that in my mind. And in terms of, as we look at, and obviously the continuous online learning, that has now been pulled away from us, that decision. And I'm supportive of continuing to navigate that with all of this, with the Department of Education, right? We're all just trying to figure out our new normal that they've presented us on Friday. I'm curious to know how the work that you've done as Story County superintendents and the metrics you've been using there, what that is guiding you towards, what are the people in the health field sharing with you in terms of, okay, yes, this would indicate, if we have them, this would indicate that, you know, you could do face-to-face right now, or no, this would indicate right now that you should be in the hybrid model. Because we will still have that decision in terms of deciding between those delivery models. One decision point's been taken away from us, even though we want to continue to hear more on that and advocate for that. And the reason I ask that is hearing some of the comments of where we are today in Story County, I'm actually more concerned about where we will be in, say, mid-September. Just as we're unique from a lot of school districts in this state, in that our population is going to start to change. You all know this, but it's going to start to change in the next couple of weeks, and we will have a higher population set of an age range that has had a higher rate of infection, I'll say. So it just, in looking at that, is there anything that you have learned from the medical professionals, whether it's the hospital, the clinic, or Story County Public Health, that helps you to understand where we are now and where we potentially may be moving in terms of rate of concern? That seems not a fair way to describe it, but I don't know what else to describe it in terms of the pandemic and our current numbers.
Yeah, I may not be able to answer exactly your question, but I think what we had gotten to a place where we were kind of going through numbers, and so the metrics would have been kind of a decision-making matrix. And what that looks like is that we consider the Story County numbers, the Ames numbers, and then the school district numbers. And so all of that helps us, you know, here's where we are. We're right in this box. here's exactly what this box would guide us in doing. Whether it's close a classroom or close, a wing for 72 hours or 24 hours. So that's what that metrics was all about, getting us to that decision-making guide. And so it's not completed. Obviously we were on a call when the governor's proclamation came through. So we all listened to it together, and it was like, well, set that aside. So we, what I can say is that the spread in Story County is concerning and would definitely cause us to be farther down that matrix than just bringing everybody back on campus all at once. So that's where I can anticipate that not today, that wouldn't be my recommendation. If in a week I brought something to you, unless there was this major turnaround, which I don't foresee that for the reasons you said. We have college kids coming back. And so I think that we're looking at a slower start to school. We would have liked to have that local control to be able to slowly ease into bringing groups of kids back. Since that's been taken away, we're really looking at basically two options. We're either going to bring all kids back, or we're going to bring kids back in a hybrid model. And I would say that based on our numbers today, that would be my recommendation. However, I appreciate what's been said about the, let's proceed with the continuous learning model. Let's go for the waiver. And I said, if nothing else, we have it in place if need be, if, we have an outbreak down the road. So, so I would say definitely, like has been said, we won't give up on that. We'll still, because we want to do what's best for our staff and our students. And so we need to keep fighting that. But in the meantime, we need to be planning too. So
Jenny, have they given you the criteria that will be used to determine if a school will close?
no, thanks. That's we wish. They have said that I'm talking they as in the Department of Education. Is that what you're talking about as well?
Yes.
Okay. They have said that that'll come out the first week of August. They said it'll come out, I think, August 3rd originally, and then they said the first couple weeks. So, we're not feeling like it's going to be in a timely manner. So for us as a board to wait on that it doesn't make me feel very confident. So I think we'll probably have to be looking to our local Story County Health and our local physicians to get guidance from before that.
Is there any sense that whatever criteria they develop will be a moving target?
Yes. Yes, that's my fear. Yeah. Yes.
Back to your question, Jenny, on the decision-making timeline. And if we had, I am not opposed to looking at that and seeing, even if to give a better indication for folks, if you're believing right now that, I want to be able to, if we're believing right now that of the options we have where we might be, to give more, if it were to be a hybrid, that if we could give the families that time, and I'm not saying I want to continue to navigate our options with the Department of Education. I think we need to continue to do that to try to have some local control there. But the reason I do favor or would be willing to look at moving that decision-making timeline up is for that planning purposes. But with that understanding that however your Story County superintendents are having these discussions between those models, if the situation would warrant itself adjusting that again, we have to ask for flexibility here because it is going to change. And I hate saying that for our teachers. I hate saying that for our families, but we are going to, it is going to be such a fluid situation, but that we're going to just have to be really flexible with it. But if there's any way we can, I'm thinking about childcare concerns for our staff and our families. It is just such a tough situation.
Yeah. So I think we'll get more information. Today's the first day we've had to really, since that proclamation, to flesh out some things. One as a staff, but two as with the Department of Education. So I anticipate as the week goes on, we'll be able to have more answers and, submit paperwork and have some meetings and have more guidance on that. So I certainly could keep us updated, and then we can revisit it. Either way, we're going to want to have a meeting to bring our plan back, so we can see how things go over the next week.
So if we were to, I just want to make sure, because right now our next meeting is scheduled for August 3rd. So if you should in the next few days determine that in what you're learning that you want to move things up, we will advertise that widely so everyone is aware if we do need to have a special board meeting next Monday. Is that an assumption that I could make? Okay, I hear you shaking your head.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, great. All right, so the next item, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next item. B, T-Mobile hotspots. Most of these
Superintendent Reisner, real quick, just a second. I'm sorry, because I did notice that we have a hand raised, and following how we have managed past meetings is we will take questions from the public at the end of the COVID-19. So the person who has your hand raised, just hold with us. We will do it at the end of all of the COVID-19 updates. So sorry about that. Go ahead.
No problem. The next item, T-Mobile hotspots. As you know, we are switching over to, we are in between tech directors. So Dr. Hawkins is going to talk about our T-Mobile hotspots. We have about a week before our new tech director comes on board. So Dr. Hawkins.
Yep, happy to take it. You'll notice later on our agenda, there's an agreement between us and the local provider in order to ensure that we are providing internet access and equity of access. We've entered into an agreement in order to purchase 300, actually to purchase the service of 300 mobile hotspots. When I say purchase the service, you'll notice in the agreement when we get to it that the $84 cost for the hotspot itself has been waived because of the plan that we chose. Each hotspot will cost $20 a month. So at 300 of them a month, we're looking at $6,000 or $12,000, or I'm sorry, $72,000 annually. So it's a significant investment, but if that's what ensures that our students have equitable access to education, then that's what we want to do. We are taking a look at those numbers simply because those numbers were developed and that agreement was penned prior to Friday's announcement. But I will note, and you'll see in just a moment, that some of our initial data from families would indicate that number of hotspots may still be appropriate.
So why don't you go right into that parent and student survey data?
Very good. Yep, happy to do that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Eric. So, yep, perfect.
Can I ask one question about the hotspots before we go there? It's a really quick question.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't even ask for questions on that. Go
No,
ahead.
that's fine. I'm fully supportive of it, obviously. I mean, we've been talking about this. We want to do it. I just want to verify there's nothing in the contract with T-Mobile that would prevent other family members from using that internet as well, so that we can, effectively allow families that might not have access to internet to have access to internet for, other purposes as well too, right?
No, there's not anything that would prohibit us from entering into an agreement
Okay.
necessarily with Mediacom to provide internet that way, if that's the gist of the question.
Okay, great.
Okie doke. So I'm gonna share with you, oh, that's not what I meant to do.
Dr. Hawkins, are you going to make this available? I don't see this as an attachment in the agenda. Is this going to be made available to the public?
Without a doubt, happy to
Okay,
do that.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is talk about the fact, like just give you a sense as a board of the responses. I did want to update the exact number of responses as closely as I could before the meeting, and during our initial conversations, we've received additional responses. So unfortunately, 2692 is no longer the up-to-date data set. But at the beginning, I should say 10 minutes prior to the beginning of our meeting, we'd had 2,692 respondents, representing 53.81% of our projected student population. As you know, if you've had a chance to take a look at it, each survey asks, it begins with asking, the name of the student. So really this was an implementation-based survey. The survey results, as they come in, are being funneled to buildings so they can begin taking a look at, who needs support now and who do we need to be planning on. We certainly recognize that these, particularly when we've asked families for, like, what are you thinking right now as far as the mode of delivery, that this doesn't represent a commitment, but it does give our building some information to begin the planning purposes now. Reminder to the board that the survey closes to the public. Survey closes on July 22nd. I shouldn't say to the public. The survey closes July 22nd. We'll stop taking responses then. But up until then, we hope to get as many individual student responses as we possibly can. I will also note here that when you look through, you're going to see in the slides that as I was building this update for the board, responses kept coming in. So you'll see on some slides like, oh, there's 2,647 responses. And then another slide, you'll see like, oh, there's 2,671 responses. It's because the time in between building those slides, more responses were coming in. And I will take the moment just to plug this for the community that are watching. If you hadn't have a chance to fill out that survey yet, we'd really love to have your data. Again, it helps us have pertinent information in which to plan for your needs and your child's needs. So here is a snapshot of who has responded thus far. And again, you can see this one is built on 2,673 responses. But just gives us a sense of the responses from different buildings. What are response rates from different buildings? I'm more than happy to go back in the slideshow, and again, we can make this available to you and to the public following this presentation. I wanted to start with one of the bigger questions that I know I've been keeping track of, and one that I think probably is on the mind of us as a planning team. I would imagine it's on the mind of the board, and that is the question of, at this time, and again, we worded it in such a way where we were really clear that it did not represent a commitment on anybody's part, but just at this time, what are your plans for schooling next year? You can see that, I believe it's, sorry, I'm trying to move my screen of people around to the most convenient place for me right now so I can read the survey, but you can see that over 73% of our respondents have said we plan to attend whatever school-based option the district is presenting. But you can see there's a considerable number that have said at this time we would be leaning towards an online option. There are, again, 100 respondents, at least at the time of this compilation of data, that we're looking at more of a homeschool or open enrollment option. I will say most of those are homeschool, and we haven't gotten a lot of open enrollment requests.
Jeff?
Yes.
Can you go back?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between the bottom two?
The bottom two, the one in the red is essentially hybrid 2. You described it earlier in our meeting with Superintendent Reisner as parent-selected self-online learning. That's what's in the red. What's in the orange or yellow color there is participation in like homeschool.
And is that new homeschool or is that regular? If they've been homeschooling and they're going to
Like
keep
the
homeschooling?
homeschool assistance program. And unfortunately, Director Bankin, without digging into those 100 names, I couldn't tell you what percentage of those students have participated in our homeschool assistance program in the past at this time.
So it's not like this could be all the parents who are already engaged in homeschool. It's not like an influx of people homeschooling. That's kind of what I'm trying to get a feel for.
Yes, ma'am, that is definitely possible.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And thank you. I appreciate asking to go back and forth. That's easy to do, and I'm more than happy to do so to answer the board's questions. I do have 23 slides here. I don't know whether you want to see every one of them, but there are a number of them that I've picked out that I want to make sure you see. One of them is this one right here. So we asked about people's priorities for the year, and you can see here. I put a header on this because it would be difficult, obviously, to read what's behind these ellipses, but in the blue and the red are an indication of those highest priorities, and those are advancing education, protecting physical health, and attending to social emotional needs. Those are kind of on the forefront of our parents' minds, at least the nearly 2,700 respondents. Earlier in the conversation, and again, please let me know if you'd like me to go back. If you want me to slow down, you want to see every slide, I'm more than happy to do so. I just know that there's several presentations you're also supposed to see tonight, and we will make sure that this data is available for you and all the public to take your leisure with. Earlier in the evening, the topic of childcare and the complexity of childcare came up, and so I wanted to make sure we hit on this slide. Again, this is a survey of our family. How concerned are you about childcare? And you can see that over 900 respondents are between somewhat and extremely concerned about childcare. It's a significant portion of our respondents that are concerned about childcare. Again, I'll stop here briefly. These last two slides talk about access to meals and food security. You can see that it's not as big of a concern amongst our respondents as childcare, but getting these results immediately to our buildings was one of the reasons that we wanted to get access to them right away. We certainly don't want to wait when we have 10 respondents that are saying that yes, very often or all the time we have to skip meals. And so that information is in our principals' hands. They're able to dig through that and work with the various groups throughout the district that have been working since March on providing meals in order to help support families. Again, I'll pause here for this one. Which statement best represents you and your family's mental well-being at the time? And I want to also focus on this question. I particularly found this one interesting. Do you need support to meet the social, emotional, behavior, health needs of your learners related to this pandemic? Again, we already have 212 or almost 8% of our respondents saying, yes, we're going to need support, or we need support now. But interestingly, nearly 30% of our respondents, I'm rounding up a little bit, you can see that it's 28.3, but a significant number of families anticipate needing that support this year. And so I know we have talked in previous board meetings about our priorities of physical health and then our priorities of social, emotional, mental health. And so clearly our families are indicating to us, at least it's clear to me, that our families are indicating to us that support may be needed throughout the year for this. I did also want to take just a moment, maybe if nothing else, to congratulate Superintendent Reisner, Eric, our Director of our Director of Communication, on their efforts here. Our families are indicating that they've received consistent and understandable messaging. You can see on the far left of your screen, agree and strongly agree around the consistent messaging from the district. And then on the far right, the question says, I've received the information I've received is too complex for me to understand, and disagree and strongly disagree are highly marked there. So again, just an opportunity to reflect on the fact up to this point, based on this respondent group, our community is feeling like they've been well communicated with and that they understand what the district's plans have been up to this point, which I think is wonderful, considering some of the changes that we've talked about already. And sometimes it feels like there's a lot of complexity here. And so I'm glad our respondents are feeling like they're understanding the communication that we're giving them.
I just want to pause here real quick. If you could just go back for just a second. And just want to highlight how I'm looking at the second one about the information being given in a language that the receiver can understand. That's a huge change from where we were just a couple of years ago. And I think that's really important to acknowledge. And I want to thank people for all the work that went into it. And additionally, just like the effort that you put into connecting those 10 families who are missing meals on a regular basis, I hope that we could also connect those families that are saying they disagree, that that we still aren't reaching them, that we can find a way to be sure we're reaching those families as well.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. I too want to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Jones and members of his team that worked in creating surveys in multiple other languages and making sure that they're getting those out to people who've identified that they need those in those languages. And so appreciative of his work as well. And I agree, when we get respondents that are telling us, no, I disagree that this is accessible to me, then we need to work to solve that accessibility issue. So thank you for pointing that out. The last slide that I'd planned to share with you, and again, I'm happy to go back to any of them that you'd like me to, but the last one that I was going to share with you was this one. I know we've talked about that hybrid one, that kind of dominated a little bit of our conversation. Not to say that we're letting go of the option of pursuing that online. I heard that message loud and clear as well. But if we are looking at a hybrid model, this is some of the initial response from our families as to what concerns or difficulties do they foresee in that hybrid model. And overwhelmingly, their feedback matches the feedback that our staff gave us earlier in June when we asked them about their experiences with online instruction, and that was about student engagement in the work. And so the work that our curriculum team can be doing in order to help prepare teachers to know how to teach in this new setting and using engagement strategies, giving information to parents on what engagement and different routines can look like, and just supporting the success of students as they're doing that asynchronous part, if this were to be a model that we need to be in. I do have some slides prepared from our student survey. Before I go to that, are there any questions that you'd like to ask me as a board over the family survey results?
I have one really quick.
Oh, go ahead, Sabrina.
I just have a really quick question. I had a community member contact me and ask if it was possible to change what they had responded in terms of what their plans were, and wondered, is there a process for that, or?
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure I gave you the chance to fully ask your question.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of the other complexities of online meetings, right?
Yeah.
So in order for that to occur, I would just need that person to reach out to me and let me know that. I can change it on the back end on our spreadsheet, but there isn't a way for me necessarily. They could resubmit. There wasn't a restriction necessarily on the number of submissions that a family could give, obviously because the family might have more than one child. So they could resubmit something, but it would probably be easiest if they would just contact me and I could change the data on the spreadsheet that goes to the buildings.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to jump back a long ways because there was something that surprised me that took me a bit to think through. If you go back to the concern about childcare, if I remember right, it was something like 35% or so parents were really concerned about it, which seemed low to me. But if I remember right, half the people responding were middle school and high school, correct?
Yeah, I'll go back to
So
that as
this
well.
mi-
Yep. So here's that graphic for childcare, and here
Yeah.
is your graphic on respondents.
Yeah, so it could be that like maybe half of all elementary school parents have serious concerns, maybe. Which
That is, yep.
that sounds like a much more accurate number to me based on what I am concerned about, what I'm hearing other people concerned about. So, okay.
Sure. Yep.
Got it.
And if you'd like me to, I'm more than happy to get into this and do a little breakdown on the back end and see if that if that theory holds true. You know, as I sort the data out, I can find out if we have some discrepancies between the different parts of our system that way.
Okay. I'm sure you and the staff are doing things like that. So
Board president, so I'll go ahead and make sure I collect that data for you.
Well, I guess I would just I'm more so interested in, I think we had 53% that have responded? I just would, if we can have the final results and some of those, yes, the childcare, wanting to understand that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
And then the choice they're making for delivery model.
Without a doubt, yep. I will certainly update the data in these slides once we get the final results after we close the survey on the 22nd.
If I can add on to what Elisa and Alan were saying, this slide struck me as well. And I think part of what I noticed, and I might be wrong, and so forgive me, but what I see is underrepresentation at the schools that at least our data tell us are the ones that have the most high, the students that need the most high services, right? Kind of the more vulnerable students are in Sawyer and Edwards. And I'm not seeing, like, I think Sawyer is like double that size, isn't it? In terms of student
population, yes.
Yeah. Same for Edwards. And so I guess what I'm really saying is that if these are the numbers you're seeing at our schools that we kind of know are better sourced, for lack of a better word, maybe what we're actually seeing in the numbers is an underrepresentation of the need that will ultimately be present in the district.
Yes.
I think to Monique's point, I guess it might be helpful for me to see, you know, like looking at the top, I'll just start with high school. So 746 out of 1,300 students, whatever the total cohort number is. That would be helpful just to understand how our survey participation played out. So,
right. Yep.
Yeah, I was looking at the same thing because it looks like on all of them it's about half, but on some of them it's skewed, and that's going to skew our information.
mm-hmm.
And especially if I would anticipate maybe that we need to make sure we're reaching all the students and parents that maybe might not have seen it through primary channels that other people are seeing it all the time, you know?
Right. Is it safe to assume that the board would base those denominators, for lack of a better way to say it, based upon the RSP projections that we got in February?
Whatever number you think is most applicable. I mean, it's hard right now to know, right? I mean, we are in such a dynamic time, if not,
right.
I don't know how to, I mean, registration papers have gone back to all of our schools. Is that a fair comparison? I guess I don't know what a fair comparison would be, Jeff.
That I understand that.
Yeah.
I again, just to be clear with you and to any community who are watching, I did use those RSP projected numbers as the denominator for calculating that percentage of respondents on that very first slide. Again, it's really, I've always found those numbers to be a reliable way to estimate projections in the past, in my past work in schools. But this is unlike any other situation. So I don't know how to account for that. But I will, regardless, I will make it clear on the slide what those numbers are based on so that there's no question in anybody's mind.
I don't want to make any more work for anybody, but I think I just recall that the principals had problems with those numbers. And so if that's been resolved and everybody's like, yeah, those are the numbers, that's super awesome. But otherwise, I would just default, because it doesn't have to be like a mathematical number.
Mm-hmm.
I would default to what the principals feel is true for their buildings, but I defer to your judgment.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions about the family survey before I move to the student survey? Okay, hopefully that's adequate wait time. Okay, I'm gonna now move to, again, that student survey. And again, same type of information. Again, those number of responses have grown since the slides were put together. They're not growing at nearly as rapidly a rate as the parent one is. Again, based using the same data source as the basis of projection. And so you can see the percentage of responses are pretty different than the responses from parents. Again, survey closes on the 22nd, and again, primarily for the purpose of providing feedback and information to principals so that they can tailor those plans and get resources as needed to individual kids. Again, here is our response rates from the 1,390. And you can see that before we were looking at approximately a 50% response from the high school and middle school. You can see that that's jumped up considerably when it comes to the student responses. I'll leave that here for a second. It looks like I see some pens flying. I'll leave that slide there for a moment if you want to look at that. And again, of course, I can come back to anything you need to see. And this was actually the last question on our survey, and one that I particularly find important, so I decided to front load it into our review of it tonight. As far as how kids are, at least how these 1,390 students are feeling about coming back to school. Again, that obviously our projected rate, our projected enrollment next year, again, based upon that RSP, we just talked about that, but is a little over 5,000. So clearly not the majority of students represented in this group, but these are the responses we have. And so it's good to see that we have nearly 60% of our students that are excited to return to school, but I have to admit, as I'm sure most people would feel, seeing that other group, it causes anxiety, right? We want students to feel safe and excited to return to school. So I am going to, we've already addressed this concept, but I did want to show, when we ask students about essentially the concept of food security, we do have some students that are saying yes very often or all the time we need to skip meals. And again, we get that data set into our hands of our principals so that we can begin that intervention process. I particularly found this slide to be interesting. How concerned are you or were you about the health of your family? We have 34% of students in that. This question was based on a Likert scale, right? So 1 was not concerned at all. 5 was extremely concerned, right? And so students were asked to respond about their level of concern over their family's health. And we can see that we have a really good portion of our respondents who are pretty significantly concerned about the health of their families. As far as, yeah, I'm sorry,
Jeff,
go ahead.
Can you go back to the slide?
Yes, sir. Here?
Other one. This one's one I've been thinking about a lot. What's this? Does this say anything to us?
Yep, let's just take some time with it. Have you felt sad, depressed, or anxious because of the COVID-19 pandemic? And you can see if you take just the 3 top bullets that say yes, either yes very often, yes sometimes, or yes but not very often, you can see that they comprise much more than 50% of the respondents.
Yeah. Okay.
I would guess it's even higher than that.
Yeah. Again, this is I would agree with the concept that Director Benkin was talking about, that it might be safe to assume that this is an underrepresented data set rather than a predictive data set. We certainly, I would tell you this, from a mathematical standpoint, we have not reached a response rate that would tell us that we are safe making predictions about the whole data set based upon essentially the inferential statistic of the data that we have. You don't get there until you get to about 80% response rate. So we're closer there with our parents at a 27% response rate with students. It wouldn't be safe to say that this is an accurate representation of the entire population. Vice President Beerbaum, did you have enough time to look at this slide?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything to comment on it, but it's just, it's a disheartening slide, but it's one that we all knew would be like this.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to see.
gonna
I
be
think
a
it does have, again, I appreciate being able to collect that data and get it to our buildings so we can be cognizant of the need to support students in all sorts of ways, right, that we've talked about already as we re-enter school this year. Particularly if students are saying yes very often or all the time, I'm feeling sad, depressed, and anxious. We want to make sure that we're setting up interventions for those students. Again, just to keep plugging it, if you're listening and you haven't taken the survey yet, this is how we're getting information to our buildings in order to make sure that if there's a kid who really needs something, this is how we're collecting that data. And so I would really encourage people to respond to the survey if they haven't already done so.
I would maybe add to that, that it's for each of your children that is in the building. So, because I
Yeah,
do
thank
know
you.
that I see underrepresentation of elementary kids, and having some of them, when you receive it, we do want you to answer it for all of your children that are enrolled in the school district. So help them to complete it.
Thank you, President Franson. I appreciate it. I was encouraged when I saw 6 Northwood students had completed the survey. I thought, oh, that's awesome that we're getting those 6 voices. But anyway, so I digress. So I wanted to show this slide. There's lots of different, I think this goes along with that theme of communication. There's lots of different, school's going to look different for students this year, masks and other things. And so our students at this point are responding, yes, I think I understand either all or some of the rules that are being asked of me in this new environment. Clearly, I know our buildings are planning on teaching routines to help acquaint students with kind of those new procedures and those new expectations. And then this is the last slide, the last data point from this survey. Just, do you feel safe at school? For me, what's most interesting, I certainly welcome your questions and comments, but for me, what's most interesting is 22% of students who aren't sure right now whether they feel safe or not, because it's just a different setting than they've ever been in. Again, I'm reading into it a little bit. That may not be why they're marking that, but I just feel it's a different setting for them that they haven't experienced before. So again, I'll just open it up. What questions do you as a board have regarding the student survey?
I don't have any questions. This is really helpful information. Thank you very much for going through the effort, and thank you to the families and the students who completed it. Super helpful.
I agree. It is helpful, and if we haven't plugged it enough, I'd love to have responses from all of our families and all of our students if we can. It helps us plan and be more proactive. All right, I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
So our next COVID item on the agenda is not quite up yet. So hang on one second. Eric, are you resharing that?
It's staff surveys, Kristen.
Okay.
That's the next one.
So as you know, we also surveyed our staff. So we wanted to provide you some information on those staff surveys. Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. So just to I'll figure out how to share my screen here and see how this goes. I don't know how, all right. Share. Eric said he would help me if I got messed up. Do you guys see the faces on it too? Do you? All right. So what if I do this? Do you still see the faces?
Nope, you're good now.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
We don't hear you if you're talking.
I think she's frozen.
Do we maybe want to jump ahead to one of the other
Yep.
topics, and maybe one of the staff that has Kristen's cell phone can get her to reload or something? Thanks, Jeff.
Yes. We will go to the next item, and I have that pulled up on my computer. The next item is participation in informational sessions. So that's Eric. We wanted to we had some great informational sessions. Excellent questions from our families. We had one with our staff that was great. So wanted to just share some of the information. They were really well attended.
Yeah, so like Superintendent Reisner said, we did have a staff meeting on Monday, and then we had an elementary and preschool specific return to learn community meeting on Tuesday. And then we followed that up with one for the middle school and high school on Wednesday. And so in between managing all the Zoom, I was keeping track of how many people were on live. And then I did go back this morning and also looked at our YouTube views as well, because we recorded all of them to YouTube. And so the staff one, we did share with the staff. And so as you can see, we had 212 that participated live. And then we had over 200 views afterwards after we shared it. And the same was for our elementary and secondary. We had 347 participants live. And that was live streamed to YouTube, and then it is, it's still available there now. And so we had 778 views total. And then we had 453 views specific to our secondary community meeting as well.
Is Kristen okay again, or do you want us to keep going?
Okay, so she is attempting to reconnect. I
Okay.
don't think she's going to be able to both share her screen and connect.
Okay.
If you want, I'm more than happy to try to go over that.
We can go ahead, and why don't we go on, and at the very end of the COVID, we'll do a quick sharing of that, and maybe you could share your screen, Jeff, and she could talk through it.
Yeah. Our plan at this point, if she can reconnect, is to either have Eric or I share the screen. If she cannot reconnect, then I'll try to walk through it.
Okay, great. Thanks, you.
Jeff.
So the next item is I wanted Judge to provide just a quick update. We had a confirmed case that ended our softball season, and I wanted to wrap back around just to be able to provide the board information on what process we used and how we went about closing this season.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. It was a week ago tonight that we had to shut down our softball program. And I really feel like our process was one of the better ones in our conference and maybe the state, due to the support of our 2 certified trainers from McFarland Clinic. Their value was tremendous in this process, just trying to manage 2 outdoor sports. And once we got a confirmed case, we started with them to confirm the results and the information. And then they went directly back to Story County Health. And they had probably had, I'm going to say, 8 to 10 to 12 calls with Story County Health up until that point throughout our season, just checking on protocol, getting advice, things like that. And then Story County Health said, you know, let's shut that program down and quarantine for 14 days, which we did. And I want to compliment Gary Gorman, the leader of our softball program, and Nick Steenhagen, our baseball program. Baseball finished up this past Friday night, but those two coaches and leaders of those programs took this process serious. We dumped a lot more pressure and process and procedure on them. And in reality, our kids did a very good job. I was really rewarded now looking back about how responsive they were to us. I thought they'd be more resistant. And we're talking with, you know, teenagers here. But they did a really good job overall, you know, in this process. And that's kind of where we landed with softball. And then we made it through the baseball season. But as of last count, heading into this weekend, I believe there's about 35 to 38 schools that have been impacted with a shutdown of baseball and softball this summer due to COVID. So now we have started about 2 weeks ago, we've started working out other kids for fall sports. We've been in the weight room, we've been out on the turf, we've been in the gym with basketball, basketball, volleyball. And I feel like the footprint is growing of trying to keep our arms around this. Now we've got more kids to be responsible for and to follow our process, which I think is a little bit more rigid than maybe some other schools from what I'm hearing and sensing. And you know, I have some hesitation and fear of going into the fall with 7 sports and 400 some athletes that we're going to have to try to manage here. The good news is we've been out there on the forefront with kids and coaches, maybe trying to live this new life. You know, that we're expected to live. So we're learning as we go. But you know, there also was some reward in those 2 programs, seeing the kids getting out and competing and seeing them smiling and seeing them fist bumping and celebrating some nice successes we had this summer. And that goes back to their physical attributes, but also their mental health. And you know, so there was some good that came out of this as well. Any questions from anybody moving into, we do expect detailed guidelines of what the 7 sports will look like this fall. We're supposed to get that information in the beginning of the week of the 27th. So we got confirmation that we're going to start fall sports on time, which is August 10th is the first official sanctioned practice. And then we'll get details of what those 7 sports are going to look like next week. And then we'll start that implementation process and approval process to do that moving forward. And then we'll just have to sync it up with this, whatever we land on with our return to learn plan and what that day is going to look like for an athlete that has to be at school at 8 o'clock. They get done at 3:15. And then what happens from 3:30 to 5:30 in their sport? And are we in alignment with keeping our kids safe and in line with our return to learn plan?
Thank you, Judge. I want to also commend you. You had a very short window to get baseball and softball up and going. And I really appreciate all of the hard work that you and your staff put in as well. It was definitely a team effort, and you led that very well for us. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You bet. Okay, Jeff, do we have, oh, look at that.
Oh,
Jenny, just a
can I
second.
ask one?
I was going to say, we might have some questions.
I apologize. I'm trying to be time sensitive here.
Yep.
Yeah,
Does anyone
it's a
have
big
questions?
topic. We just keep having more stuff on. I guess the question I would have, Judge, as you said, during the softball and baseball season, we put a lot of pressure and stress and additional impact on our staff for those softball and baseball coaches. Now we're about to go maybe to 7 sports that are even more complicated. I guess maybe this is a question, I don't know if it's Judge or Jenny, but is there anything we need to be doing to help support those coaches even more? Because they're on the front line in this and they're going to be under so much pressure. I worry about them and those student athletes and what we can do to support them.
Well, that's a great question, and it's definitely in my thoughts every day. The beauty of now having an assistant AD, Ian Smith, help me run the events. It's allowed me to really check in with my head coaches daily now and just get a feel for, are they needing some time off? Do they need support? Do they need pep talk? I am really more in tune with the overall mental health of our coaches and our kids now as we work through this. So I just want you to know I'm spending more time on that aspect as we speak with our staff out there in the trenches in a tough situation.
So Judge, I actually have quite a few questions. So I understand that it's IHSSB decided that they were going to go forward with sports, and I don't really know what metrics they used and what discussions they had with healthcare officials, but it's not required that Ames abide by their decision. So what was the decision making for you to continue with all 7 sports?
Well, we haven't made that decision yet officially. I was hoping that they would delay sports so that we could buy some more time to get our arms wrapped around this, but also give all of our districts time to get the school day going and the return to learn plans implemented. So I'm a little, we've got to start chasing this again and start making those decisions soon. And then I'll have to really educate our administrative team next week what the guidelines are going to look like for those 7 sports, and can we manage them, and do we feel good about them, and things like that. So as you know, I was a little extra cautious on the baseball, softball going into that. I will probably most likely have the same approach going into our fall sports, but I'll need some ownership from you as a board and our administrative team on how we're going to do it and how we're going to implement these sports.
Have you considered not going forward with all 7 sports, depending on what kind of contact they have and how they can socially distance, et cetera? Have you considered that maybe some of them are not feasible to do?
Yes, since Friday when we got that announcement, my head has been spinning, about how to manage 7 sports, and it's very natural for these kids, their teenagers, their teammates, their friends. We can kind of control 2 or 3 hours of their day with some process and procedure, but it's the other 22, 23 hours that we see them just being kids, and they're hanging out together and they're coming in carloads together to practice and things like that. So yes, everything is on the table to consider. And then I'm just a little bit of a holding pattern until I see what the expectations are for those sports next week when we get them.
Well, I mean, I'm not really talking about when they're not under your purview, but some of the sports we're talking about, it's impossible to utilize the mitigating factors that they're suggesting to stop the spread of COVID, right? So yes. They're saying 6 feet, masks, et cetera. Some of the sports won't even allow that. So why are we considering moving forward with them?
I'd like to see the guidelines. I'd like to see where we are as a group. There could be some minor modifications coming in these sports, but I agree. How are we going to keep football kids, offensive linemen and defensive linemen, 6 foot apart during a football game? How are we going to do that in a volleyball setting? The sports like cross country, golf, cheerleading, if they're not doing stunts, they've got a chance to be more successful in that front. But I don't want to make a quick decision on what's coming at us. I just want to continue to take some time to evaluate and see where we land as a group on making a decision for fall sports.
So I'm really happy to hear what you're saying, but I have one last question. I'll let it go for tonight. What messaging is being delivered to kids right now about fall sports? That they're on or not, or you're still considering it, or?
We've sent out some minor information that we're allowed to play, and it's allowing us to plan what that's going to look like. So that's just where we're at with things. We're not making a commitment. However, I do have some pressure from the athletic community of full speed ahead after Friday's announcement, and I can't go full speed ahead right now.
Thank you very much for your answers.
I'd like to echo Director Lankaitis' concerns. I'm concerned about that contact and the fact that we're trying to focus on this return to learn plan for the students to go back to academics. And then we have this other layer. I'm concerned about what we'll do for the whole community. And I appreciate what Judge you're doing. And I can, even through a virtual meeting, I can see that you're being very thoughtful about this. And I can also imagine the pressure that you're in for the athletic community. I mean, we all want to see our children thrive, right? So I thank Director Lankaitis for bringing this up. But I do have a question. So the softball and baseball, this is for Superintendent Reisner, when it didn't go through the board, we didn't have to approve. Would that be the same for this fall sports?
Yes, it wouldn't, because you already have that. Sports is already an approved activity that we do, and it doesn't come back yearly. So that would be the same. But, I certainly, if it is something that there's no rule that it can't come through the board. So my answer would be, does it have to? No. Could it? Absolutely. You bet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Towards that, I mean, especially given what you said, Judge, right, as a board, we definitely have your back in that highest priority is safety of the students. I know you're getting pressure to make decisions. Make sure you're comfortable with those decisions. And I think the idea of maybe bringing it back through the board so that it's clear that we as a board and as a district are supporting the decisions that are being made and have your back on those. I would be fully supportive of that, I guess, just to make sure that it's not, I don't want you to feel like it's all on you, right?
Thank you. I hear your message. Thank you.
So what I can do is work with if there's more questions, you can still ask them. I just don't want to forget this. I can work with Judge on like a timeline for when we could bring it back to the board, Judge, with just kind of the plan layout, your recommendation, if that would be helpful. He and I could work on that, and I could communicate that plan timeline out to the rest of the board.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a couple things. First off, I want to comment on this past summer because I was impacted as a parent, and I want to sing the praises first of Judge, Ian, our trainers, our coaches. I saw you a lot, Judge, but you handled it with such grace. Because different communities had different expectations when they came to our ball diamonds, and our staff was in a difficult situation, but I was very impressed with the manner in which you dealt with it and dealt with the other student athletes. I think that I know that it was frustrating at the beginning when I won't say frustrating, but I know that you were being very thorough initially and trying to navigate whether you allow 8th graders on the program, if you don't, and you were careful with that. And I appreciate and look forward to hearing about how you are navigating as we move into another sports season. I will say that I don't know what the balance is with this. Obviously, our top priority is the health and safety of our kids, and we've got to, and our staff, in navigating this. I also, I know that for our student athlete, it was a huge opportunity for our kids to have a little slice of normal. And I don't know how we find that. That is so tough in today's day. So I don't want to minimize any of the things in front of you, but I did just want to say how much I appreciated the manner in which you and your staff carried out this summer. Obviously, moving into 7 sports and 400 student athletes is a very different, brings its own challenges. So just want you to know that I appreciate the work that you're doing.
I appreciate the comments, and we'll keep trying to make good, sound decisions here with my leadership team above me. And, we can't forget about our middle school athletic program too. They will be, somebody will have to work with them, and that's where Jenny and I and the middle school team will work on helping you, educate you on what middle school sports may look like as well.
Thank you, Judge. Any other questions for Judge? Okay. Now we'll move to Kristen's presentation.
I'm not
Thank
going
you.
to. Yeah, I'm not going to use my video. I think I must have used up all my bandwidth for the month. Or
Yes.
something. Just sorry about that.
No problem.
So yeah, so I gave the whole presentation. Do I have to do it again? No, I'm just kidding.
Did you really?
No.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
All
I
right.
like to joke. Okay, so anyway, we wanted to present a snapshot, and here we were at, yes, you can go to the next one, thank you. We had 443 responses. As you can see, almost 60% of them were from our teachers, and then 19.4% from our educational assistants, and the rest were dispersed amongst the coaches, administrators, support staff, facilities and custodial, and then a lot of them, I don't have all three of the different pages on there, but they were, learning leads, and everybody who has their own job title that wasn't listed in the grouping were able to put other as an option. So we had a pretty good response. We had over 50% respond, and we really we wanted to see the faculty. So we did it as from 1 to strongly agree to 5 strongly disagree, and asked the questions that you see listed on the slide. And as you can see from here, the majority of our staff are concerned about being able to return to on-site learning safely. They appear to be pretty reasonably, well, I would say less than half are reasonably confident that appropriate safety protocols will be in place. So that might indicate that we need to do a better job of communicating what we are doing and what we intend to do. Most of them, of course, understand the importance of, most of them understand the safety protocols being implemented. But so or at least they believe they do. They just don't think they're enough, it looks like. But I can tell you, we are working at providing the most safe, as much as of the equipment that we can. The mask, the face, their facial coverings, the face screens, all the cleaning. We have a big plan for hoping to keep things as clean and safe as possible. Here's the one I thought I was going to do. The most, almost, well, 75% almost do understand the importance of screening for symptoms, whether they do it themselves or whether we do it as an employer. I think we've settled on everybody will do their own self-screening. But actually there's a tool available in our human resources online management system that employees will be able to go to check on that if they wish.
Kristen?
Yes.
Can you go back to that? So there, because I'm worried about 2 through 5. Is it them saying they don't understand the importance and you need clarity, or they're saying they don't agree that it is important? How are you interpreting these numbers?
Based on the comments, and there were few, I would say it's a combination of both. I would say it's a combination of somebody not understanding the question, or somebody feeling that they don't think this is a big deal. That the COVID-19, they don't agree that it's an overwhelming health concern.
Okay, thank you.
So 55.8% of our staff do fear being infected due to personal health conditions. They are afraid that they will get sick from coming to work. a bigger percentage are afraid of taking the virus home to their family. And I think that one's pretty significant. 65.2%, and this is putting 4 and 5 together. They fear contracting the virus from coworkers. And then the next slide is 68.2% fear contracting the virus from students. So it's a little bit more, but as you can see, they have a stronger, more people have a stronger fear of contracting the virus from students than they did from their coworkers. Almost half of our staff may not have that. They feel they may not have adequate access to child care for when they're working. So the next thing that I did was ask if staff needed accommodations for learning in the different modules. This first one is, if it was on-site learning, would they need accommodations? And 23% of our staff said that they would need accommodations for on-site learning, mostly due to health. There are some childcare issues, but the reason why, I mean, since they wouldn't, if in the absence of COVID-19, they would be working on site, I interpreted the childcare need as a prediction that their own children would not be in childcare or would not be at school because of COVID-related reasons, even in the on-site learning mode. The next one is off-site remote learning, 12.2%. So fewer staff would need accommodations for remote learning, but most of those staff would need it for childcare needs. Some of them who mentioned their own health condition and the health condition of their family, I think misunderstood this question based on the answers, because I also further asked what accommodations or would you need? And a lot of them had said, you know, I want face masks, I want face shields, which are not needed for off-site learning. So I think it was just a misunderstanding of the question. And then if there's a hybrid model, there we have 23.7% say they would need accommodations for their own health condition, for childcare. Both of them are pretty high. And that's almost 25% of our staff. Commonly cited concerns, I had a comment section. So there's quite a few I listed. There were some some common themes. They're fearful of their own health and their health of their family. They're concerned about the difficulty enforcing the requirement that students wear facial coverings. They're concerned about the difficulty of teaching with facial coverings themselves, although face shields may help alleviate this concern. Concern about the lack of availability of substitute teachers. We haven't had enough in the past, and teachers have had to go and cover other classes. How are we going to do that if we don't have enough subs this year? The childcare is a common concern. Support staff are concerned about if we're in remote learning, what are they going to do and will they get paid? Staff is concerned about understanding what happens if there's a reported case in the classroom or building. Some of the implementation items that we really haven't gotten to yet because I'm not going to go into that whole discussion again, but all the things that we've been talking about since the beginning of the meeting. There are concerns about the safety of shared supplies, equipment, and books. How are we going to make sure they're clean and don't become a vehicle for transferring the virus? They're concerned about the exposure to asymptomatic carriers because right now the experts are saying that is a possibility. People who don't know that they're sick who are transmitting the virus. There was a lot of mention about inadequate ventilation in the buildings and what happens when the virus and the aerosol particles with the virus held into them are just hanging around in the classrooms. There is concern about the availability of leave. If they have, we've already had that discussion. Support for mental health of staff and students was a concern. The inability to practice social distancing in a classroom that's already crowded. And then there were quite a few comments from our related arts, fine arts, those who travel from, who have a lot more exposure to a lot of different groups of students in a single day. They're concerned about their ability to work safely. And so that was the staff survey. Are there any questions?
Kristen, could you go back 2 slides, please? So for, yeah, so for about, I'm not understanding what this slide is telling me. Are these people who have put in for the leave under the, it's the CARES Act, right? They get leave under that. Is that what this is?
No, this is the question is, if we were in a hybrid learning module, what do you need accommodation wise for you to be able to work? And we didn't say what, we just wanted to know. We asked them to let us know what, and there is a comment section, but I didn't put all of those in there. But examples are, I will need childcare if I'm supposed to be in school and yet my kids are at home, they're at an in-home day.
So you just said 23% is saying they need an accommodation, but the accommodation could be any one of a list of needs.
Yes, yes.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is this telling me, and it sounds like the answer is no, that 25% of our staff would be out of the building because they get a CARES health related release.
No, that is not necessarily what is said, that does not necessarily what this means, but it may mean something like that, because if they don't have childcare, what are they going to do?
And the CARES Act, if it's the wrong one that I'm citing, that's fine. Help me out, please. But the CARES Act allows a worker to have an absence based on childcare needs, right?
Yes, and I call it the FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Protection Act, or something like that.
FFCRA.
Yes, yes. That's where the leave comes from, and then you have the EFMLA, which is the Expanded Family Medical Leave Act. So the FFCRA are the 2 weeks of basically guaranteed paid leave for a COVID-19 related reason that does not get deducted from your leave bank.
So I guess what would be helpful, and I don't know when we might be able to get this, and again, I'm not trying to make work for you, is that when it does come time to make a decision, I need to know, because it sounds like, hybrid is probably, I think Jenny said hybrid is in the running. It's their number one horse at this point. And so, but if us selecting hybrid means a significant amount of our staff won't be in the building, I need to know that.
So we won't know. The next step for me, and with regard to the staff, is to let them know that we have a process for them to request their accommodation. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that piece has already been prepared. I have to be careful. I can't go in.
Sure.
It has to be done securely.
Sure.
And so it's going to be done in steps, but the first thing is that they'll reach out to me through a Google form. They'll have that ability to do so, and they will let me know what is the reason for your need for accommodation and what are you going to request. And then I'll go back and forth with them on that.
Sure.
But we can also, the next step after that then will be to determine what we can do for our staff that also helps make sure that we meet the needs of our students. Sure. For example, some folks that put in what they said they needed for an accommodation was that they wanted the district to provide them with their facial coverings and face shields. Mm-hmm. So it may not mean that they're going to be gone, or they want to make sure that they, have plexiglass. We had a lot of people who want plexiglass on their desks. Mm-hmm. So those are the kinds of things. It may not mean that they'll be absent or
But
wait
it
for.
sounds like you really wouldn't then be able to give the board kind of solid information about what these accommodations would look like especially if we're going to vote next week, or 2 weeks from now, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. So,
Okay.
so I guess that's the board's decision. Because which comes first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, do you plan the student needs around the teacher needs, or do you plan the teacher what we need for teachers around the student needs? Or, I think you have to.
No, I can hear that, and I just, for me, I would like to make the decision with as much information as is possible. And so if this was a piece of information we could get, that would be great. But it sounds like you're saying it's probably not, because it's such an extensive process, and that's fine.
I could come up with a percentage that said something along. It would take a lot of digging into the.
Don't. It's fine. It's fine.
But it's there.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
I just have a clarifying question to something what Monique was saying. The percent, if we go to hybrid model, percentage of staff might not be in the school. Can we clarify? Because I'm thinking the way that I understand the hybrid is that the students is the 50%, but the staff will all be there. So all the in a certain, let's say Edwards, all the second grade teachers will be there because they will only have half of the students, right? So the staff will still be there. Can somebody explain that to me? Thanks.
Yes, I can. So what we have with the hybrid model is we have all of the folks who need accommodations for on-site learning, maybe because of their own health condition. We have them because they will be on site, but then we have some of the concerns of an off-site model because a lot of our teachers, a lot of our staff have children who will not be in school full-time. So then they will need, a lot of them will need childcare because because school is where their kids normally would be during the day. So if the kids are half-time at home or not in school, who's watching the kids? So that's the accommodation that is needed. Is there a way for us to provide, get some kind of childcare, or they have the ability to take leave, and that's guaranteed, and that's that new federal law of expanded family and medical leave. So,
and we are working on childcare options. So we have a task force that, well, I guess task force isn't really what it's called, but Iowa State and then some community providers met earlier this week, or that was last week. Man, I apologize. It's all running together. Last week we met, we have another meeting, and so we are exploring what are some creative options if this is the world that we're living in and we need to have additional childcare, both for our own staff and for other families. So
I have a question. Would it be possible for them to maybe do some of the online learning? For the parents that choose to do online only, or, we've got them.
It is. So it seems like that would be a simple solution, but it's not. There's certain qualifications, so we have to make sure that the qualifications match the class that they're teaching. And then, we have employees that receive like FMLA because of a disability that we would put first into a position. So it is very possible, definitely possible, just not as easy as it sounds and not a guarantee.
But that's one of the pieces of information that would help us determine our ability to meet the accommodation needs of our staff is what are the parents going to choose in terms of sending their students back to school or choosing remote learning. So it's kind of like it really is which comes first. It's a circle where everything is dependent on all the other choices.
So, I mean, when I'm looking at this, and thank you for putting together this information together, Kristen, I mean, it's the type of stuff we've all been wondering about, I think, for months, right? The one that strikes me is the top level number of effectively 3/4 of our staff are concerned about whether or not they can return and work for the district safely. I mean, that's a huge number, and we owe it to them, obviously, to make sure they can feel safe, right? Like that, again, safety is our number one priority for the students and staff. I think we have to find a way to move that number. And I know everybody's working on it, but let us know how we can help with that. But that's the number that struck me on this one. Hopefully we can find some ways to handle.
Yes, I think everybody feels that. And it's I'll tell you, it's hard to, tell teachers. It's easy to tell them we're doing what we can. We're going to have as much protection for you as we can. But when their anxiety is through the roof, it's really hard to, be able to give them that comfort that they really need.
And it's unknown. We don't know when everyone comes back. So I think there is their anxiety is definitely legit. I mean, we feel it. We all feel it. So yeah. Kristen, is that it for you?
That was it for that survey.
Okay.
I have one quick question, Kristen.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have talked about the expanded FMLA leave for childcare issues related to COVID.
Yes.
Is that paid or unpaid leave?
That's paid leave. And it's 2/3 paid leave.
All the 12 weeks is paid.
It's it's paid at to a cap of 2/3 of their pay, which they can supplement to get to their full paycheck with their accrued leave.
Interesting. I did not realize that I thought it was only 2 weeks that were paid and the rest of it was just job protected leave.
Well, just for the childcare needs for related to COVID-19 cancellations and closures, it is paid. And it's a total of 12 weeks. So it's 2 weeks under the FFCRA leave and then 10 additional weeks under the FMLA. And that's the only group that gets the paid leave under federal law. The paid extended Family and Medical Leave Act. Everybody gets the first 2 weeks paid leave.
So substitute survey.
So the other piece of what I was trying to figure out is because I anticipated that we may not have our full complement of subs, and this is for all the positions I sent out for EAs and teachers and secretaries. The other positions, we don't have very many of those. The vast majority of our respondents were teachers and EAs, and out of the 108 that responded, 27.8% said they're not going to come back and be available to sub this year. And out of that number, 72.2% of them were certified staff. And even those who will come back have said they would not be available district-wide. We have some who said that they would only sub for certain buildings, some who said they would only sub for either, secondary, some who said they would only sub for primary. It's kind of all over the board there, but it was just significant because if we don't have them available in all of our buildings, if we can't even take the 2/3 that are going to be available and make sure they're available in all of our buildings, we're going to have a hard time meeting the needs of our staffing needs to cover our classes. And then the commonly cited concerns for our substitute teachers, a lack of knowledge of our safety precautions. And I already did a little, I think I did something there to hopefully help. They had not been in our communications because they don't have district emails. And so I created an email group so that Eric's communications could also go out to our subs, or at least the ones that have been here last year. A lot of our subs have school-age children, and if their children are home because there's no classes, then they won't be able to sub. And then, like I said, many of them indicated they would limit which building or position they would sub for. And that was a very short survey. I was just looking at the snapshot of who's going to be available to sub, how many we would have, how big is the problem going to be.
All right, so that's your last slide on that?
Yes. Were there any questions?
I have a question. I don't know if it's for you or for Jenny, but let's just say we're in hybrid. There is, for whatever reason, not a teacher. Can the district then just cancel that classroom for the day?
No, we can't. Yeah.
That's the classroom cancellation that's required to be done in consultation with the Story County Board of Health and that, right?
Yes. In the past, Monique, our plan included the option of it if a teacher, like I said earlier, if a teacher was quarantined but not symptomatic, we would be able to move the class online. That was a nice feature, knowing that we're going to be short subs, because, just because you're quarantined doesn't mean you're sick. So being able to, and that person would still be paid. And so being able to have that option is something that I have on the list to bring up when I have my meeting with the Department of Ed. Any other questions?
Quick question. Were EAs surveyed? I'm not sure whether they were on the staff or on the substitute.
EAs were included in the staff survey.
Staff. Okay, thanks.
And you'll get a copy of this too, because I know it was a lot of information, a lot of different presentations with data. So we'll make sure we put these out as well as on our website. All right. We will move to, I think that's it on COVID.
I was going to say, I've gone through my list. Is that all the updates you have for us on COVID?
It is.
Okay, I see that we have some members from the public. So we will go ahead and Tom, we will give you, I think Eric will give you permission to speak.
Yes, it says that Tom is using an older version of Zoom and I cannot allow him to speak.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Tom, if you wanted to go ahead and either, why don't, if you happen to have your email handy, if you wanted to email me your question, I could definitely read that.
Mm-hmm. So while we are hoping that Tom can email Superintendent Reisner, it's just jenny.reisner@ames, and I just drew a blank, k12.ia.us. Sorry. If you want to go ahead and do that. And then we'll go to Kent Spillers. And go ahead, talking has been permitted. And Kent, it looks like you have a mute button on. Can you?
Yep. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hey, I drafted about 4 questions here. And first of all, I appreciate all you guys are doing. Honestly, we've participated and watched the K-5 and 6 through 12 webinars, and we really do appreciate it and all you guys are doing. We've been pretty active with just everything with our kids in the Ames community. So I do have like 4 questions though. And so if it's easier to email or copy and paste into a chat function, I'd be happy to do that. But can someone please confirm that with the governor's proclamation on Friday, is a family still allowed to choose the 100% online learning option?
Okay.
I
Why don't
could
you
go ahead.
go, I was gonna say, do you want to answer it now? Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry about that. I could go ahead and answer that. So yes, Kent, a family is 100% still able to choose that fully online option.
So I guess the confusion lies in talking with families and friends of then what was the proclamation? Because I mean, and I appreciate Superintendent Reisner, you've been so transparent, and as hard as some of these questions have been to answer, you've admittedly said we just don't have an answer yet. And I work at DMAC, and we're in the same boat of, I tell students and families that all the time, I just don't know. So I appreciate that, but so I just don't understand when she made the comment of 50% has to be taught online, or 50% has to be, more in face-to-face. How are we allowed to choose that option as families? Can you explain that? Because I don't think people get it.
Yes, I know. And here's what I'm going to say. I am so sorry that I have not been able to make this clear. I know that it is really confusing. And then added to that, the information that came on Friday. So there are two different options. So one of the options that's still on the table that a parent can do, they can elect to do that online option for their child. And that's fully online. For everybody else who the family may not elect to go online, they want to come face to face. That's where that hybrid 50% comes in. So that is what the governor talked about. And before, our hybrid plans were able to really be drafted any way we wanted. So if we wanted 40% in person and 60% online, that we could do that. Now that's changed to 50%, but understanding those are two different options. So if you as a parent are going to choose that fully online option, then your child isn't coming. So therefore they're not either in 100% face-to-face or 50% face-to-face. Whatever that decision is made is the decision the board will make. So basically their two options at this point are to decide for everybody else who doesn't choose online, are they going to come in, are students going to come in a hybrid mode or in everybody is there on site?
Well, thank you for clarifying, because I honestly don't think I was alone in that. I've heard, like I said, from talking with friends, like it just wasn't made clear, and no fault to you guys and the school board. So thank you.
Does that make it clear?
Yeah. As long as people know they can still choose, entirely online. It was the whole response of, well, then the school board has to present their online learning options, to the DOE, and then they have to approve them. But if me as a parent says, I'm just not comfortable with all of this, we still have that right, correct?
You have that right, and we don't have to have those classes approved.
That's fantastic. I think that's gosh, hopefully I answered about 90 other questions if there are any more in your queue on that, because that was the big thing that we just was never made real clear. And again, not from any fault of you, but just from the state. So
well, and we'll push that out again. We'll make sure that gets out again. Thank you for that.
No, I hope you do, because I think that's I'm probably the more vocal of the people in my friend group, and that's what people have been wondering of, is this even still an option? So thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Monique asked earlier, since answering the survey that Mr. Hawkins presented, can families change? Because I've been a part of surveys in higher ed where it's a real pain to have to change things on the back end. So would you guys even entertain the fact of sending out that survey again to say, after the proclamation on Friday, is your family still more apt to send students face to face or come, do online? Would you guys consider that? Or I feel bad if he has to just update a survey behind the scenes.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. That's great feedback.
I just don't know. And then I was an aim side, student and listening to Judge today. I've known him since 1990s. That's phenomenal. I will say that having a daughter going into middle school or coming out of middle school and going into high school this year as a freshman, the whole point of somebody mentioned earlier backing up the start of school, and you seem to kind of entertain that idea. I might have misinterpreted the entire comment you made, but if that's the case, does the August 10th start date still stand for fall sports?
Yes, that I believe is conference. And Judge, am I correct on that? That's a conference date?
August 10th is actually what the state says. All high schools in the state will start.
And the only reason I worry is again, I'm just being very vocal and honest, and I've listened to this since 6:30 tonight, and I appreciate you guys entertaining me, but we've got family and friends in out of state where some of these things weren't even an option. So when my daughter got an email on Monday of last week to come to open gym for volleyball, we refused it and just said, I had to explain to her, you're not going. In our opinion, we've done the right thing since March, and we've masked up, and we haven't taken vacations, and you're not allowed to go. I said, I'll reluctantly let you go to the outdoor on Friday, which was at a sand volleyball court. And then the response from the coach was, we can't mandate any of these athletes show up at these practices until the 10th. And that's just a hard conversation to have with a kid. And I guess I'm looking for a cop out, to be very honest, of, again, with family and friends in other states where these conversations aren't even happening. Fall sports aren't happening. Summer softball and baseball didn't happen. So it's making me as a parent have these conversations with my kid where, gosh, I wish somebody else was, in a position of authority was just saying, no, these aren't going to happen. Those are the struggles I'm having as a parent right now.
Elisa, you're muted.
You're muted, Elisa.
I said such wonderful things there. So thank you, Kent, for sharing your questions and concerns with us. And just in light of time, just making sure I see Shannon Grundmeyer, and if you can try to keep it to the 3-minute time, just trying to be aware that we have the rest of the agenda. We do understand, though, that there's lots of information here. So go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you. I would just like to echo Kent's concern about the data and the survey that went out to parents. I know many of us did it the day we got it, and which was well before the proclamation was made on Friday. And I do think that a fair number of us would have a different response. Knowing now that there is not necessarily a local control to close down a classroom or a building due to outbreak or risk of the virus. So I do think it is worthwhile to look at potentially resurveying parents or finding a way for us to be able to edit our responses.
Thank you, Shannon, for that feedback. We appreciate it. I see Brian Worth. And if I can remind members of the public, if you can give your address for our minute taker. And if we can give Brian Worth access. There we go.
Does that work?
There you go. You've got
it. Okay. Yeah, my address is 3515 Emerald Drive, Ames, Iowa. I had a couple of things that I want to talk about real quickly. And they do kind of lead towards what everybody's talking about with that survey. And if I remember correctly, it was around like 70% said that they would do what the school wanted to do. And obviously, I think that was based on us thinking that you guys had full control over things. And I think that's because we trust the school board, we trust the superintendent, we trust all of you guys on making the right decision, and all the information you're giving gives us that trust, and we want to follow your guidelines and stuff like that. So I guess I have a request with the change that has happened on Friday. Um, it was mentioned before that there was going to be some metrics that were going to be developed that would help you decide between the different stages, the different plans and stuff. And I would ask that continue to develop those metrics for online, full in school, and the hybrid plan, and maybe give that to us as parents so that we have what you guys were thinking, because it was you guys that we trust. So that would give me the ability as a parent to help guide my decisions on if I want to choose for online or not. To be honest, I don't want to follow what the state guidelines and metrics are going to be. I want to follow what you guys are doing, or what you guys would have done, I suppose. And on that kind of note, if it would be at all possible throughout the school year, those metrics are going to be tied to some sort of data, and being able to give that to us in emails, keep us up to date on those type of metrics, whether it be, the Story County data, the Ames data, or something like that. And I know I'm probably asking someone to have to do a lot more work here, and I apologize for that. But these are the things that I want. This is the information I really feel like I need as a parent to be able to make those tough decisions and have something to help guide, because as I said, we did really trust you guys on that, on what you guys were planning on doing. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I know some parents are feeling very relieved that we are still going to be able to choose for our kids to have the 100% online learning. But I feel that it's important that the district also makes sure that we understand that this, when a parent chooses an online learning, it is going to be a very different experience than as if the district had chose 100% online learning. And that's going to be that difference between synchronous Zoom meetings and things like that, where you have real-time talks with your teachers versus the asynchronous watching videos and stuff like that. Because from my understanding, choosing the online learning as a parent at this point, it would be more, I would not have as many of the classrooms of the teacher giving a lecture via Zoom. It's just going to be more watching videos and that sort of thing. So,
Thank you. Oh,
yep, go ahead. I'm done. I just
okay.
tried to get it
All
all
right.
out as quick as I could.
Okay, well, thank you for the trust you've instilled in our administration and board, Brian. We appreciate, really, in this trying time, really appreciate your comments. So thank you. Anita Rollins.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Anita Rollins, and I live at 3714 Woodland Street here in Ames. I'm speaking on behalf of Ames Youth and School Action Team, or ASAT. ASAT was established in January 2017 and is a nonpartisan and apolitical group of concerned citizens with allies across the Ames community, whose intention is to shine light on racial and ethnic disparities that exist throughout the Ames Community School District. The purpose of these comments is to thank Superintendent Reisner, district directors, and all district staff for their leadership as they work to ensure that students return to school safely in the fall. We recognize and appreciate that the district's original Return to Learn plan, which was developed after a thoughtful review of educational recommendations, complicated public health data, and recommendations from the Center for Disease Control, was well thought out. The plan provided flexibility to ensure that parents have an option for remote instruction, and that as public health data shifted, the district could utilize various education delivery models to ensure continuous learning and prioritize student safety. We acknowledge that equitable educational outcomes were a central focus of each of these plans. Additionally, we want to thank school building leadership for providing level-specific and building-specific online meetings for parents so they could learn more about the Return to Learn plan. This transparency is important to the community, and these meetings provided an important opportunity for that transparency. Even with the new requirements from the governor and Department of Education, we are confident that the Ames Community School District will continue to advocate for its students, families, and staff with a focus on safety. In a time when many feel confused, angry, and anxious, we want you to know that your efforts to provide clarity and leadership have been seen by this community and are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. We appreciate the comments. Jen, your coffee? It looks like you've been permitted to talk. Are you there? Okay, how about we'll skip her and come back, and I'm sorry, Butenmel, sorry, it's a screen name.
Can you hear me?
Booten?
Go ahead, Booten.
Yes, this is Lauren Booten. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
It's okay. I just put that up there one time and then I just have left it. So that's my bad. I live at 5402 Schubert Street in Ames. So I'm a middle school teacher. And first, I just want to say thank you I've tried to listen this whole time. It seems like you are focused on making teachers safe and really considering the teacher point of view here. And I'm really appreciative of that. I'm also appreciative of you focusing on those small percentages, like in the surveys, when it's only a certain percentage feel a certain way, that you want to focus, well, we want everybody to feel confident in this or whatever. So I appreciate that. I also would appreciate if we could have some more on that as far as the intersections of some of those survey points, like the childcare one, how many % of people needed childcare, and how many of those, it seemed like a small percentage, but maybe like somebody said that's 50% of the elementary school. So I would appreciate some digging into the data a little more. But the main thing I wanted to bring up was about subs. And of course, that's alarming to all of us. 67% coming back. That's, a third of the cut of our subs. We already have to sub for each other all the time. And so what I'm really concerned about is if we're trying to do mitigation efforts and things like that, how are we going to maintain that when, and at the middle school, we've had to cover for each other a lot during our prep periods. If, I'm supposed to be contained to the certain group of kids, but then I have to go and expose myself and the kids exposed to me when I have to go sub for another teacher. And we have some teachers that are gone a lot. And so having to do that, having that exposure both ways. And then if we don't have anybody to sub, then are we going to have to combine classes? Because then that's the opposite of social distancing if we're combining and having a teacher responsible for 60 kids, or even half of that. Well, I mean, half of that would be okay, but when the point is to be at half capacity, that doesn't work. Also, the fact that not only are we having to sub for each other and for the exposure issue, but think about the preps. I had a teacher that had to sub at least 30 times. That's 30 prep periods that he missed. And so with all these new things, if we're going to have to juggle being able to teach online, teach some of our kids online, teach some in person, or be available to just switch and be fully online, we have so much more on our plate as far as prepping, and we cannot afford to lose those prep periods. And so I'm just really concerned about the workload, the extreme workload that's being put on teachers' backs. I will do all the best I can, but I'm just really worried I'm not going to be able to do it. And the others aren't going to be able to do it either, very well at least, or, we're going to be very, very stressed. And so I'm very concerned about this whole subbing issue and having people there to watch our kids. Also, I don't like the fact that the sub requirements to be a sub are lowered with kids during this time. They need certain supports, and we don't need less trained people to deal with our children. Thank you.
Okay, Elisa got kicked off the call, or the Zoom. So I will just take the lead. Jenya, we're going to come back to you. Are you?
I think I'm
there?
okay now. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jenya Coffey, 4257 Eisenhower Lane. I have a student who is going to be a 5th grader at Sawyer this year, and I work at the middle school. Firstly, I just wanted to give my support of the district and the school board. Your concern and your care for staff and students is very evident tonight, and I do very much appreciate that. I appreciate that you're being put in an impossible situation, and we're really put in one even before the governor's announcement on Friday. I appreciate that schools have, for a long time now, been tasked with doing more with less, stretched kind of to a breaking point almost with diminishing funding and increasing demands. And now this has grown to like almost a comical level with this expectation to open schools safely with no help financially or guidance from the state. And I feel like the district was doing their very best to do that work. I saw you trying to work with data in mind, with public safety in mind, and with equity in mind, and I very much appreciated that. It feels very much like an impossibility to do what we wanted to do with our new proclamation. So speaking as a parent, thank you for all the opportunities that you've given us to learn about what these plans are for our students. Thank you very much for the requirement that facial coverings be worn at schools. I worry a lot about our vulnerable populations. It's great that we now have this we still have this parent choice to choose online, but realizing that that's not really a choice for a lot of parents. And when we think about which parents it's not a choice for, it's often our vulnerable populations that really don't feel like they have this choice. I know for us, our plan is to keep our child home. Part of our thinking is that it's going to be very difficult to keep staff and students safe with distancing with large numbers of students. And so if we can keep our child home, it is our plan to do so, with the hope that that will make it a little safer for people who don't have that choice. So I'm hoping other people are thinking that too. And then of course, I feel good about being able to keep my child home, but I can't keep myself home if I'm required to go teach 5 days a week. So I'm definitely in that large population of teachers who are very justifiably scared to go back to work right now. It doesn't feel like it's at all a safe environment. I know that you will do everything you can to keep us safe, but I also know that you're not being given a lot of help on that front. I really can't wrap my brain around how a safe level of social distancing is possible at the middle school or any of the schools really. I'm not sure how we have funding to do what needs to be done to make it feel a little safer. So I'm very nervous about the school year, but I have great faith that the school board and you will do everything that you can to make it as safe as possible. And I appreciate you continuing to work on our behalf. So thank you.
Thanks, Jenya. Let's see. Joe Wires, we'll come back to you to see if we've given you permission to talk.
It looks like you did.
Okay, you're ready. Go ahead.
1210 28th Street. Thank you for all that you've been doing. I have been really impressed and grateful for the board's transparency and the transparency of the superintendent and school administration office. Truly the plan, I mean, while nothing has been perfect anywhere around here, I thought under the circumstances, it was really great. I'm quite disappointed on Friday's proclamation with the lack of transparency from the governor's office and the disregard for the time and the wisdom from the Return to Learn committee. And with that, just a few comments from that. And my first is probably not coming from Iowa. I'm not exactly good with Iowa nice. And so because of that, I'm really upset that I'm sure over the last 2-3 months, this Return to Learn plan has taken up a lot of hours and a lot of time of resources from the district. And I would like, one, I asked the school board to just kind of measure that up and let us know kind of how much was essentially voided out on Friday. And if possible, ask for reimbursement to the governor's office on that, because that, as a taxpayer, should have been avoided and could have been avoided in any of the if any of those announcements were done prior, especially back in April when they said do this with no other guidance by July 1. I want to reiterate what some other commenters have said about the district survey. My answers have probably changed since Friday because I did trust what you guys had put in place. And my question or one comment would be for the next plan that does get released, that you please do include what the plan will be for when a sub is needed, because everything I keep hearing back from one of those slides where 25% of subs aren't going to be coming back, that worries me. If the subs aren't coming back and you no longer have the authority to pause or cancel or move online, I really would like to know what it is and strongly advocate that teachers do not lose planning periods or their planning time to adjust for that, because I just don't think that's just and fair. Finally, I just wanted to ask, there's a big survey that, or a lot of things that are being mentioned about a study in New Jersey of how few children have died from this. But there was one death of a child who was 4 years old, and my understanding is that child was diabetic, type 1 diabetic. And as that goes on, and I ask anyone listening as well as you to keep in mind, I have a 4-year-old who's a type 1 diabetic. She was diagnosed at 15 months old. All those studies and everyone that's pointing that out is saying my kid doesn't matter. And so please keep that in mind as we look at this and as we look for the safety, because I'm putting my trust in you as she enters kindergarten, that you're going to keep her alive.
Thank you, Joe. Betsy, wait.
Hey there. So I have a question, I think more for Judge, possibly Jenny. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. And Betsy, can you give your address quick, please?
Yes, 3001 Sedgwick Street. I have a daughter, Caroline, that will be a senior this year. So I have a question more on the sports side of it. I'm kind of confused, Judge. So if the state says that they will allow fall sports, is there any question at that point for Ames? Or is it a go at that point? Or who else gets to make a decision with that besides like you and the state?
Well, that's a group decision, like I alluded to earlier, Betsy, that, once we get the guidelines for 7 sports, we need to look at that in depth and see if we can implement that safely, if we have the staffing, if we have the resources, and then just work together with the board and my administrative team. I can't promise. I don't want to speculate. I want to see what that looks like, and then we'll make the next decision to move forward with that.
Is that the Story County Medical Board, or is that who that is? Is that who you're referring to?
No, it's the IHSAA for the Boys Association and the Girls Union down in Des Moines. They'll provide guidance next week for the 7 fall sports.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the board, I'm just confused, I guess, because it sounded like the board did have a say in it, then it sounded like it didn't. And I felt like, I'm not sure if some of the board was supporting the sports or not, or I didn't get the vibe that they were, some people. So that was why I was a little concerned with. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
At this point, I want this to be a group decision from our school board and our administrative team and myself providing guidance moving forward. So that's what we'll discuss, and Jenny and I will start meeting here soon on prepping for that, and we'll do the best we can with the information we have. And Betsy, you know me, I'm 100% sports.
I know you are. And I wanted to tell you, sorry, go ahead.
And I just want to do the right thing for our kids and put a safe environment out there for them athletically, and something that we can manage. And so there's a lot of unknowns.
And I wanted to thank you for all your hard work. The kids love you, and we appreciate everything you did. And I've talked to so many softball and baseball parents that said it was a very successful season and how good of a job you did. But we are very pro sports, and my kids are excited to go back to school for a number of reasons. And yeah, so I appreciate everything you're doing, Judge.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Yep. Tanya.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. My address is 5301 Clemens Boulevard here in Ames. And I just wanted to, as a staff member at the middle school, thank you all for all you're doing. I appreciate very much the conversations you're having about staff and students and trying to do the right thing for everyone. I wanted to address a comment that Alan Beerbaum made when looking at the slide about staff safety. And I just wanted to put another spin on it as you're looking at that data. While I do believe that a lot of teachers answered that question in regards to the safety of themselves in regards to health, I also think that staff is worried about being responsible for the safety of other students, their colleagues, and so on, and then also the liability factor. And so I would just like some clarification at some point, if it is possible, about what individual liability looks like in our classrooms, because I know the idea was addressed about the organization's liability is covered, but I'm just kind of wondering about as an individual teacher where my liability and a coach stands at this point. And then the other thing I just wanted to talk about was the idea of maybe, and I have been on the committees, I was on the Return to Learn committee, and I'm also on the implementation committee, and I know we're working really hard on the staff handbook. I think including a liability piece in the staff handbook might alleviate some of the concern that people have. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you for those questions. Very important to hear those. I see Shannon Grunmeyer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I am at 4910 Ontario Street, and thank you again for allowing me to entertain another question with your group. I had a concern regarding our most vulnerable populations. I have a son who has some special education needs, and to be really honest, I do not feel comfortable sending him back to an in-person schooling environment, knowing that he's also pretty high risk medically. And so I'm not sure how to serve him. It is truly just an impossible position for me to be in as a parent. And I know it's a really challenging position for you all to be in as administrators. And so I just want to acknowledge just how challenging that is, and also trying to figure out ways that you all will be able to support parents like me who maybe have to stay home and or help educate their child, you know, especially those with special needs who are not going to do well with online learning, but knowing that that is perhaps the best choice for him.
Thank you, Shannon, very much for your comments. Appreciate them. I am not seeing any more hands, so we will go ahead and move on to discussion items. And the first discussion item this evening is our board committee updates. Any committees want to share anything in addition to their committee meeting
I forgot
minutes?
I forgot to unmute. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So the policy committee met on July 7th. The first thing we discussed was the IASB policy review, which is when IASB does a full in-depth review of all of our policies. Right now that is scheduled for July of 2021. But Superintendent Reisner mentioned hoping that we could move that up to happen sooner. So she was going to investigate that. The first policy that we were going to review was the anti-bullying, anti-harassment policy, which is policy 104. Kristen recommended that we wait on that. She and the staff were putting together revisions based on guidance that had been released recently from the Federal Department of Education. So the policy, the revisions that they had made did not include that guidance. So they were going to go back, look at that again, and then present the policy to the policy committee at a future meeting. We had several other policies that we discussed as well, but those are all on our agenda tonight. So I will not take time to go through those right now. We're going to be hearing about them shortly. And our next meeting is scheduled for July 23rd at noon.
Thank you. Let's see, facilities, anything you want to highlight, Alan?
Yeah, so I encourage everybody to read through the minutes. Jerry takes copious minutes, which is great when going through to summarize as well. A couple of things I wanted to point out. Some good news, the AHS construction. I know there was a lot of concern we had, a year and a half, 2 years ago about whether parking lots would be on schedule to be able to support students being able to get to the school. Those are on schedule and nearly open. They might actually be on the way to open this week, but Dean was confident we'd be good there. One thing I also wanted to highlight is, as we remember, it seems like forever ago, but it was probably a few months ago, there was a discussion about a change order that'll be coming through with some CTE changes in the high school. That'll be a fairly large change order, but I just want to give everybody a heads up that that'll probably be coming through in one of the next couple of board meetings as those are getting squared away. Also, as you can see, the Mitchell renovations proceeding on schedule. One thing we had a discussion about originally, if you remember back when we were doing things related to the demographics and just strategic planning, one of the things Superintendent Reisner was going to be taking on this year, and it started in with staff, was strategic planning, especially an equity-based one. There was some discussion in the facilities committee back at that time about Jerry syncing up a facilities, kind of long-term facilities plan with that plan. And we kind of made it clear in the facilities committee that, we're not holding him to that initial schedule because nobody predicted the pandemic, and that he should work with Superintendent Reisner to determine what they think the best time to start thinking about when we bring that back is. And that really in the meantime, maybe focus on some of the deferred maintenance and things like that, where maybe that's a place where some of the Pebble funds could be used right now as we're kind of supporting the things that are going on and not put more burden on the staff. Then another thing we discussed, the facilities committee, because we have a number of people attending from like Story Construction and other remote locations, we had a discussion about whether to have meetings in person or virtual going forward. And we came to the conclusion that for that committee at least, staying virtual for the foreseeable future is a way to make sure that anybody that needs to be coming to the meetings is able to stay safe and meet whatever restrictions they might have in their places of business. That's probably what we'll be doing. And our next meeting looks like it's going to be August 6th.
Any questions for any of the board committees on those updates? All right, we will go ahead and go to the instructional support levy. Chris.
Eric, do you want to pull up the attachment, or else give me the ability to share? If you can pull up the attachment, that'd be great. So board, I know it's been a long meeting, so I will try to be brief. We've had some really heavy stuff we've talked about tonight, so maybe it'd be nice to actually get back to a little bit of normal business. So I wanted to update you on timing for our instructional support program. The instructional support program is a funding source that we get that is equal to 10% of our regular program revenues. It can be authorized by board resolution for up to 5 years or by a vote of the people for up to 10 years. We have traditionally done it in 5-year increments with a board authorization and saved the money at the election. It can be funded with either property taxes or a combination of property taxes and income surtax, and we have done the combination. We're currently at a 4% income surtax. Out of 327 districts in fiscal year 20, 1 district did not have the program and 326 did. So you can see it's very popular, especially as we went through the years and budgets got tighter and tighter. It was a good funding source to supplement our general fund budget. We last authorized the ISL on December 14 of 2015, and it expires on June 30th of 2021. The statute actually enumerates a number of things that it can be used for. And then the final is that it can be used for any general fund purpose except dropout prevention and gifted and talented. So I'm not sure why they listed all the items in the code, but you can read through them. But basically, it is supplement for almost our entire general fund, anything that we do within that. For fiscal year 21, the program generates $392,000 from property taxes and approximately $2.3 million from income surtax for a total of $2.7 million. The property tax rate is 13 cents and the income surtax rate is 4%. Reauthorizing the ISL will not increase property taxes or income surtax, but not reauthorizing it will result in significant program cuts. So it takes a little bit of time to get the program initiated or to get it reauthorized. So we're doing the discussion tonight. I will bring a resolution on August 3rd for the intent to participate. That will set a public hearing for August 17th, which I will have to publish no later than August 6th. On August 17th, you will hold the public hearing and consider a resolution to extend the instructional support levy. And then there is a 28-day waiting period before other action can be taken. There is actually a reverse referendum provision within the board authorization that allows if a petition wants to be filed for an election to be called. I don't anticipate that happening, and then we would bring it for final approval on September 28th. And then the program would be reauthorized from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2026. I think I kept that pretty precise. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Chris? Chris, thank you for the information, very helpful, as well as the report. We appreciate that, and we will look for that to come on the next date. Let's see, policies for discussion. I'll just let you all lump all 5 of those together. So policy committee and Superintendent Reisner, you can take it away.
I don't know if anyone on the policy committee wants to, I know it's been a long meeting, wants to speak on these. I'm sure that you were able to read through them on your own. The one that I think point out, 604 point, let me make sure that's the one I'm looking at, the right one. Actually, I think it's 907. Can you bring up 907, Eric, the attachment? I apologize, I should have brought that up. Yes, this is it. This might not be it. I can't remember. Is it it might be the other one. Anyway, the one that is the online must be the other one. We developed the 2 forms. I apologize, Eric. We developed 2 forms.
The student absence.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The state had, this is the form that will be used to request online education, that option. And so the state had put out one form that was specifically just for medical. We made it into 2 forms just to help us separate between the medical and the parent request one. So it appears that the forms aren't attached because they aren't part of the administrative rules section, but we will have those on our website, and Eric will push out that to the public so that they can easily access those forms for those requests.
Superintendent Reisner, I sincerely apologize for interrupting you at this time, but it seems like this might be the most pertinent time if you're
bet.
Okay. So board and any community members who are still listening, I know there were several comments about, things changed significantly on Friday, and I think I might change my survey results. And I just wanted to reiterate, particularly when Superintendent Reisner is talking about these forms, that the district fully intends to send out an official form. As a reminder, this survey was just the what way are you leaning so that we can get some numbers. I wouldn't want families to feel as if they've made an official choice, if they've missed an opportunity, if they marked something, have changed their mind. There will be an official way to communicate with us about that. And so don't feel like you've labeled something or made a choice that you can't change. And so again, I apologize for interrupting you, Superintendent Reisner.
So just, I think that's a really important point. I think there is a lot of anxiety in the community of, oh no, I've already committed to this. And so perhaps from the district's perspective, if there's a way to push that message out, I think that would actually be really helpful for the community.
Yep, I don't disagree. We can't over communicate. It did state that in the survey that when you're filling out the response, it wasn't a commitment, but clearly we heard tonight some people maybe worried that they had changed their mind and wanted to let us know how we can make sure we communicate that. Again, Superintendent Reisner, I apologize for interrupting you.
No problem. I know earlier you had wanted to mention that. So Sabrina, anything that you want to add to, I know you were prepared on this to add any comments.
No, the question that I had, or I guess something I wanted to clarify for people who may have looked at some of these policies, that they do sort of indicate back when we thought that the online was an option. But I think it's still, we want to keep that in there and keep hoping that we will have that option down the road, so. I appreciate you mentioning that, Sabrina, because as I was reading them again today, I was thinking through, because many of these, they were IASB suggested from the policy primer when IASB understood our guidance to be in such a way. So I just didn't know if there was any communication from IASB that, oh wait, maybe we should think about this in these, or do we feel like, no, these are going to be general enough for our policies that they work today the same way they did last Thursday?
I think I would recommend they're general enough. We didn't get any indication from IASB otherwise. And
Okay.
if we need to come back and change them, we certainly can.
Okay. And I appreciate your comments, Sabrina, because it is, I was looking at that on the student absence and maybe some implications there, but they seem general. So thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments on the policies for discussion? And as is our process, we will bring them back to our next meeting for action items. So we will go ahead and move to I'm sorry, I just realized I just went through 3 discussion items and did not provide an opportunity for any comments from the public. So my apologies, public. I'm just going to blame it on the hour. So are there any comments from the public on the board committee update, the instructional support levy, or the policies for discussion? Let's start with those things. And please raise your hand if so. And I am, Eric, do you see anybody? I'm trying to get I do not see anybody raising their hand. So, okay, we will go ahead and move to the public forum. If there is anyone who would like to address the board and staff during the public forum, may have already heard from all of our public members that wanted to speak. I am seeing none, so that we will go ahead and move on to the consent items, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Moved by Benkin, seconded by Shields Cook. Superintendent Reisner.
Just waiting for those to get pulled up, but you know what? I'll switch screens and I'll just do them off of a different screen.
Okay.
Robert Lindemeyer, United Way of Story County, 2020 Ames High Senior Band members, Nicole Banner, Stonebrook Church, Min Kay, anonymous donors, Tom Wingate, Allison Robertson, Lori O, Ryan and Angie Gerwell, Amy Edwards.
All right, moved by Benkin, seconded by Shields Cook to accept the consent items. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0.
First action item, the 2020-2021 substitute pay rates.
I move the board approve the substitute rates of pay for 2020-21 as presented.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Linkaitis. Discussion?
Finally.
No, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that.
Yes, the people have been asking for this for well before my time on the board, so.
Yeah, we made an increase last year by $10 and this year by $5. So in 2 years, we're up $15. Is that correct, Chris? I believe it is.
All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item B, Ayler's joint representation and waiver of conflict.
Sorry.
Hold on.
I move the board waive Ayler's conflict of interest and approve the firm's joint representation of Ames Community School District and other Story County districts for the purpose of reviewing contracts relating to a data exchange to allow United Way of Story County to recognize needs and trends to target their resources and programming.
Well, that sums it up.
Moved by Shields Cook, seconded by Linkaitis. Discussion? Superintendent Reisner, do you want to share something?
I'm so sorry. I'm just keeping us chipping right along, aren't I?
Well, and I don't want to, if there's any information or any questions anyone has about this, I don't want to keep us rushing. So
no, we've talked about this before periodically at the board level, so I don't think I need to touch on it.
Okay, thank you. All right, moved by Shields Cook, seconded by Linkaitis. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item C, New Ames High School, change order number 2.
I move the board approve change order number 2 to Absolute Concrete Construction, Inc. in the amount of an addition of $3,122 for the bid package number 03-1 interior floor slabs for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Linkaitis, seconded by Benkin. Discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item D, New Ames High School change order number 6.
I move the board approve change order number 6 to Core Structural Services LLC in the amount of an addition of $5,906 for bid package number 05-1 concrete foundations, precast and steel for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Colton. Discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item E, New Ames High School change order number 4.
I move the board approve change order number 4 to Landsync Construction, Inc. in the amount of an addition of $3,497 for bid package number 6-1 general construction for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Benkin. Discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item F, change order number 1.
I move the board approve change order number 1 to Northern Cedar Service Company, Inc. in the amount of a deduction of $26,051 for bid package number 7-1 roofing and sheet metal for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Perez. Discussion? Don't usually see these, right, folks? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item G, change order number 1.
I move the board approve change order number 1 to SGH Red Glaze Holdings, Inc. in the amount of a deduction of $14,121 for bid package number 7-2 metal panels for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Lenkaitis. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item H, change order number 1.
I move the board approve change order number 1 to Hilsebeck Shot Inc. in the amount of an addition of $648 for bid package numbers 9-1 gypsum board and acoustical treatments and 9-4 acoustical ceilings for the new high school project.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Lenkaitis, seconded by Perez. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item I, change order number 1.
I move the board approve change order number 1 to Poindexter Flooring Inc. in the amount of an addition of $11,550 for bid package numbers 09-2 flooring and 09-6 tile for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Lenkaitis, seconded by Colton. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Nay. Passes 7-0. Item J, change order number 1.
I move the board approve change order number 1 to Midwest Automatic Fire Sprinkler Company in the amount of an addition of $129 for bid package number 21-1 fire suppression for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Lenkaitis, seconded by Benkin. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item K, change order number 3.
I move the board, sorry, go ahead.
I move the board approve change order number 3 to ACI Mechanical Inc. in the amount of an addition of $3,781 for bid package number 23-1 mechanical and plumbing for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Shields Cook. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item L, change order number 6. You're on mute, Monique.
I was like, I can't read it. Hang on a second. Okay. I move the board approve change order number 6 to Construct Inc. in the amount of an addition of $5,437 for bid package number 31-1 site development for the new high school project.
Second.
Moved by Benkin, seconded by Shields Cook. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Item M, Mitchell Elementary Addition, change order number 1.
I move the board approve change order number 1 to Lane Construction Group Inc. as a no-cost change for the Mitchell Elementary addition and remodeling project.
Second.
Moved by Lenkaitis, seconded by Perez. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board.
I just want to say something real quick. I know we're all tired. They're like, damn that Monique. So I just want to say, I have really appreciated the conversation tonight. It went way too long, but I appreciated the thoughtfulness that everybody brought to the table, the different perspectives that were shared. You know, I just keep thinking, I just keep hearing this talk about safety. And what I'm hearing is for every family, safety means something different. And so for some families, it's being at home. For some families, safety means being at school. And I just want to thank everyone for coming and having this conversation and helping me think about this very complicated issue in a more nuanced way.
One thing I wanted to and I didn't say it up above because really it's related to COVID, but it's not an action or a discussion. It was just, it's kind of related to safety and kind of how we make families feel safe in the community. And one thing I saw that some people were doing that I just wanted to put it out there as an idea or just a thought, is as we're forming cohorts for classrooms, taking into account that there's already neighborhood cohorts, right? There's kids that are playing with each other, there's kids that are comfortable with each other, and there are families that want to support each other. So like if they're working in hybrid or they're working fully online, kind of sharing family resources with next door neighbors. I don't know if there's some way to take that into account, but I had seen some people within the community talking about that type of thing. And it's not an aspect I'd thought about, but now that I have, it's another level. We'd obviously have to find a way, if we did something like that, to make sure that we take into account equity, both the strengths and weaknesses that might provide. But I just thought it was an interesting thing. I saw some community members really wanting to figure out ways to help each other with childcare more directly, like help their neighbors. And that's refreshing to see. I love that Ames can help each other.
I think just a couple, go ahead, Jamette.
Oh, thanks. I just want to say, and I'm sure it's perfectly clear that I am appalled by the emergency proclamation, which is a bit of an oxymoron if you think about it. An emergency proclamation should be to keep people safe. And this is kind of, there's a ship sinking, jump on it, and you have no life vest or anything. So I just want to, hearing the teachers speak, it just breaks my heart. They're worried, and I have a hard time thinking of what we're sending our teachers and our staff to do. It is unfortunate that our governor did not prioritize this, did not put any mitigative measures in place so the children could go back to school safely. And now, last minute, we're having to scramble and come up with things when we thought that we had something figured out. So I just want to, it's important for me that the community knows that I think this proclamation is appalling, and I am very upset about it. So I appreciate the work that my fellow board members are doing. I'm being reached out a lot by people, and I'm sure you have too. And I just want to send my love to all of you, because this is, we thought we had some control over it, and all of a sudden we don't. So thank you to my fellow board members.
Anyone else? I just will, a couple of updates. Superintendent Reisner alluded to this in our weekly board update, but I did want to share that we have really appreciated being a part of the Cyclones Care communications between between Iowa State University, cannot believe I just did that, Iowa State University, City of Ames, the chamber, the hospital, in common messaging around our community for the four public health steps that we can all take to try to get through this. And so I've just really appreciated Mayor Hala, President Winterstein for walking us into that and providing us that opportunity. Got the opportunity with Kristen Johnson, Chris Densel, and Jenny Reisner to do the IASB Leadership in a Crisis conference last Wednesday, which already feels outdated. But I do really appreciate the guidance and advice and support IASB continues to provide us as a district. And while some of it, there was some really good information, and I hope board members that the stuff I sent to you, at least the questions, will continue to guide us in our role as we try to provide that oversight and support to our district administration. I think that tonight it is very evident, and you don't have to tell anybody this, but just how incredibly difficult this is. And I know Superintendent Reisner and I talked a couple of times after the proclamation, and just wanting our staff to know how much we really appreciate the efforts. The individual that made the comment that we should invoice the state, you're not the first person that's told me that. But I know that we will get through this and figure this out together. I value the roles that all of us play, and the lenses we provide, and the conversations we can have, and all of the information that was presented tonight, because it is very helpful for all of us as we continue to understand the changing dynamics of this pandemic. So just really want to say thanks to all of our staff members on that, and to the board members. Superintendent Reisner, items from you.
And I know this list looks long, but I have some good news. We've covered most of it. So let me just graduation follow-up. My only item, I just wanted to quickly shout out to everybody who helped make graduation happen. Our high school staff that participated was phenomenal with helping, and the students. Brian Carrico stepped up and really ran the show, and we just had a great, it really turned out nice for the students. And I know a lot of work went into it, and certainly a lot of stress, and I appreciate the public bearing with us as we we waded through this. We probably could have done it a little timelier. So lesson learned, and we apologize for that. But we got it pulled off, and I think the kids enjoyed it. Just an update on the metrics development. I already spoke about that. We were in the middle of it. We listened to the governor's call, and then we just kind of said, stop. So I appreciated the comment tonight about let's finish it. And I'm going to, that made me feel really inspired, because I think we had a great product going. And so we will definitely finish that and get that out to you all just to take a look at, and maybe it brings some peace of mind to others as well. The next item, I just wanted you to know that I will be recommending, it'll probably be on the next personnel report, a recommendation to hire 2 additional nurses. This will be out of those CARES funds. And then in addition to that, we have realized that we need help on the emergency management side, and a lot of help with ordering supplies, keeping up on numbers, data, contact tracing, the list goes on. And we, within the last probably 3 weeks, we have felt like if we don't have somebody to really be focused in on that, we could miss things, and that's not acceptable at this point. So I'll be recommending the hiring of those 2 additional nurses, as well as the emergency management coordinator, all of that out of CARES funds. Senate file, I'm sorry, I'm just ripping through these. Are there any questions? Okay. The next one, no need to talk about, Senate File 2310. We've talked that to death. Venue format, the last item, just a venue format for future board meetings. I don't know if we want to have a quick discussion tonight about this, or we can wait. Just the proclamation or the emergency, well, it was a proclamation that carried through to, I believe it was July 27th for boards to meet remotely. That's still in effect. I think there's a feeling that that will get re-upped, but we don't know that for sure. And so I just wanted to kind of talk through what are you feeling as a board? And I also really want to make sure we protect our board. We talk about protecting our staff and our students, and you all have a really important role for us, and I want to make sure we are protecting you as well. So thoughts on that, and then also knowing that it is possible for some to come in virtually and some to be present. So, I think we can have those discussions.
I think one thing I'd point out is outside of the board, even, we had I think 102 attendees besides the panelists today. And we've seen that 70% of our teachers are scared to come into the school, and 25% of our parents are scared to send their kids back. Those are the same people that we really want to get feedback from and really want to be able to talk to us. And I don't really want to tell them that if they want to express their opinion, they need to come into a room where they can't socially distance at the district office. So, I know my personal feelings is, yeah, I'd feel more comfortable being online because of personal stuff, but I really want to do whatever's best for the community. And right now it seems like staying virtual is. But I'm open to whatever the will of the board is there.
Ellen, I think you brought up a great point, and honestly, it was one I hadn't even considered. Look at our turnout at our board meetings and the amount of information we're able to give in that regard. So yeah, I think we talk about there are practices that we've learned through COVID work really well. And, there's some things that we need to take away as lessons learned and not change. So I'm glad you pointed that out. I had not considered that.
I think for me, I think if the exemption expires, the exemption expires. And then as a board, we need to work, if there are board members who need accommodations, we need to work that out. But I think if the exemption is extended, I really want to see our district fight for the right to have remote online learning for everybody as an option, because I feel like we need it. And I think that, to me, that sends a conflicting message. If we're saying to the state, we need to have district-wide remote learning because our cases are so bad, but we're going to gather 100 people in a room, to me, it's inconsistent and doesn't really make any sense. And I think just in terms of our mission and what we want, I don't want to do anything that jeopardizes the Department of Education saying, yeah, Story County is in a bad spot, we probably need to give them this option.
Yeah, thank you. Good feedback.
I'll just chime in to say I agree with what both Alan and Monique said. I was looking at the numbers earlier, and I think it was up into the 111-ish actually at one point for the attendees. I've never seen that many people at an in-person board meeting, and I think it's nice for community members who don't have the option for childcare or transportation or other reasons to be able to have their voices heard through a forum like this. So, and I also echo what Monique said. I don't believe it's safe for us to have school in person. That would not be my preference if we had a say in it. So I would also prefer to continue meeting online because I believe that when we have the ability to do things virtually in this pandemic for the best interest of our entire community, that's what we should do.
I would agree with my fellow board members. I prefer that we stay remote. I think it's good for the community. There's no reason to add that more traffic through the building. I think this is working. And again, and also the engagement, that was a huge piece. I mean, that was just a Zoom. And also there was like 60 people on the YouTube channel. So I think that shows a lot that accessibility is important. So remote would be my preference.
And I do want to point out that we also have said that we won't be gathering staff altogether. So staff development, building meetings, those will be done virtually. We're really trying to, yes, we may have to go back to school and follow the governor's orders really, but we also will still continue to not bring large groups together whenever possible. So I think that does stay in line with what we're doing in the buildings.
I just don't think it's safe, to come back in for meetings. We've all pretty much expressed that it's not safe for the staff and the teachers and the students. So why would we expose ourselves and everyone else who would come in to speak to us? It just doesn't make sense to me.
All right. Anybody
I
else?
agree too. I'm short and sweet. I agree.
You're tired, probably. I just thank you for that discussion. I think I heard from just about everyone, if not everyone. Anybody else want to weigh in?
You didn't hear from me, and I echo what everyone said. I would say where I struggle, and I don't know how this would work, is as if we were pushed into, if we had staff and students in school, I'm struggling with what is a consistent expectation I have for staff as well as myself. And I don't know, I'm torn on this one. I'm really torn on this one. So, but I understand what everybody has said, and so.
And I've thought about that too, Elisa, and I'll be quick because I'm not short and sweet, so I'll be quick. I've thought about that, and the way that I thought about it is that I'm not sending them back to school, right? They are making me send them back to school because my preference is that we all start online and then we face it in. So that's how I have thought about it.
Lisa, I think of it too, because what you're saying is if we're asking them to put themselves at risk, why aren't we putting ourselves at risk? But, I think that one thing I was going to say is we could have the board meetings with us all in the room, but I don't think that it's possible to invite everyone in to comment the numbers that we would want. And obviously with the numbers that were on this call, we're becoming much more accessible this way than we've ever been before. And people can come and go. We had one person leave and then come back and make a second comment. That doesn't happen in the boardroom. And so I think that this has just been a great format. And so if we think about it that way, rather than we're trying to keep ourselves somehow in a bubble different from other people, I don't know if that's really the reason. I think we should lean towards we've become much more accessible. And I have not heard before now the support that everyone has for the board and that we're transparent. And I think it's because this level of communication has been better.
And that's why I brought up my concern, because I knew you would all have some helpful thoughts on it. So thank you.
I just want to add as well, because I think this is important. This came up in social media today, is that I got several gigs. I wear several hats. So I'm actually going to be going back to campus at Iowa State and teaching face-to-face. I'll be teaching a classroom of 70 students, dressed like a hazmat wizard. I don't know. But I think the idea that not having the board meetings in public somehow is me living in a hermetically sealed tomb is not true. I still have to work. I still have to go out. I still go to the grocery store, right? And so if having these meetings in a way that reduces the risk in our community, to me, that actually just seems like the responsible thing to do versus, well, hell, we're all just going to get it. Let's just all get it today, right? To me, that's not the way I would choose to engage this pandemic in our community.
I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with me, everyone. Jenny, do you have anything else?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
I actually do. One other quick thing. I just thank the board for just the support. I think the grace and support. And I feel it in your messages, and I feel really honored to get to serve this community because, it's a good one. We've got amazing staff and our students amaze me, and I'm feeling blessed and thankful. So appreciate it.
Well, thanks for all your efforts. Board planning calendar, our next meeting at this point is scheduled for August 3rd. Obviously, if we have anything come up, we will broadcast it widely, but August 3rd is our next meeting scheduled, and sounds like it will be remote. So continue in this format, assuming it that the proclamation gets extended. I will go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, y'all can't second it. So I heard
8
Perez.
seconds.
Everybody seconded. Choose who you
Nobody's
want.
eager or anything.
So we're going to have a debate on who the second was. No, Bankin, you're on my screen right now, so you get the second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Good
Good night.
everybody.
Safe.
Bye. Take care.
You.